Check, check, check 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Check, check.
I call this Public Improvements Committee meeting of Stow City Council to order. I am Chairman Matt Reel. Vice Chair of this committee is Kelly Coffey. Other members of this committee are John Baranek and Mario Fioca. All other members of council are present. First up, the approval of minutes from May 22nd. What is your pleasure?
Move to approve.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Noes, abstentions. Those minutes stand approved. Service Director's report.
Nothing to report tonight.
Questions for the Service Department? Yoka.
Just a quick question. I did note it looked like there was a few water main breaks in the Ward Ford Leewood area yesterday. Was that coincidence? Anything that led to look like multiple breaks in that area?
Right, yeah. As you all know, the water tower's down right now, so we're relying on the pumps. And we had a spike in the system, which sent a shock through there and created quite a few breaks. And this afternoon, we actually had a power outage, which when the pump switched over from electric to generator and back, it created another shock wave. And of course, we have another break we're on right now. So we're handling them as they come in, and hopefully without as many disruptions as possible.
Thank you.
Further questions for the Service Department? Okay. We have one business item tonight, and that is the presentation of the Echo Road Stormwater Study. If you all recall, 25 years ago forward, any time that it rained in the city of Stow, there were areas of the city where residents were rightfully fearful of their basements being flooded or sewage back up into their basements. All over the, all sorts of stuff, across all four wards. Echo Road and that area is one of the last major project areas. And if you recall, it was City Council, earlier this year, that put the request in so that we can get something moving on for this part of the city. So I'm excited to see what is going to be presented tonight, and hopefully we can have some solutions shortly. Who would like to introduce our guest? Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Reel. Yeah, we're pleased to have Kyle Riggenbach and Pete Nugebauer here with DLZ. They were the ones that completed the storm sewer study for us on Echo Road. So I'll turn it over to them to start off the presentation.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Riggenbach, and Mr. Nugebauer is right here to my right. So, to put together a little presentation here, it's going to give you a brief synopsis, kind of overview of the report. The whole report is available if you'd like to read it. It's a nice, short, 400 some pages with calcs and drawings and nice, words. So, but if we let's go through. If I get this right. All right. So just a quick scope here. So the scope and the reason for the study, we were assessing the existing conditions of the reported flooded locations, and we evaluated the hydraulic capacity and also developed some potential solutions and recommendations. So those are the three main bullets we'll kind of go through today. The map on there, I should note, is, so the boxes are the kind of the reported flooding issue spots or problem spots that we got from the city. There's a couple that were noted there for a bigger storm from 2014, which would have been a 500-year event. The that's on the circles, and then the boxes are the main ones that have been more recent or frequent complaints. The agenda there, within the existing conditions, we'll kind of roll through how we develop the maps. We'll from the calcs and looking at the capacity of the system, the problem areas, and then some of the solutions and recommendations we came up with. Starting with existing conditions. So the project area here is the box. So that is from 91 Darrow over to Highwood, and from Maple down to Pinehurst and Monroe Falls. To get a good view of this, we kind of gives you a 30,000 foot view. We had to step back to see what the drainage area looks like. And from the other note there is the soils are mostly clays with a very thin layer of topsoil. So they're not very good for absorption of the water. When it rains, you're not going to get a lot of absorption. It's going to sheet flow pretty quickly. So, but the main thing here is it's divided into two areas there. We had a western and an eastern area. They both eventually make their way down to the Cuyahoga River. The eastern area is a little flatter, and the west has some steeper topography. If we come close in here, we also performed a drone flight, so we could get some survey data points, get some topography there for the elevations. And then in conjunction with the record drawings review for the sewers, for the divisions of where the flows go, we were able to divide the east and west areas into essentially 3 main drainage areas. So 1, 2, and 3. When you can kind of see where they fall within the boxed area for the problem area there we were looking at. When we step down now into the project area, the main components there would be the western area drainage 2, which has got the steeper slopes, and then as it goes to the east, it's shallower there. And to give you an idea there for the flat kind of there, there's a picture of 2059, which is kind of in the middle of the eastern area there. And that's looking south towards Echo. The arrows there, when we were looking at that, kind of saw, we take a look at where the sheet flows are going within each property too. So. And from this, we were able to also, we updated the GIS for the storm sewers. We did a couple spot surveys in conjunction with the existing record drawings to confirm the slopes, elevations, so that way we could do our capacity calculations and kind of determine the problem areas. From the capacity calcs on that, let's see if it catches up here a second. So we'll go to the problem areas now. The calcs showed we had 2 surcharge locations for the existing sewers, and then an open channel capacity issue down in Monroe Falls, which is where the drainage area for the east goes through. So I will go through here. We'll zoom in here. So the first one is over on 91. This was for the western drainage area 2. It's a much smaller area, and we were able to calculate that. Now, I will note on this, the calc showed there was a surcharge on the pipe, so the pipe doesn't have enough capacity, but that's looked at just the pipe. The pipe is sunken, so it's got to fall into it, so it can build a head pressure and go through there. And then even if it was to pop over this, the main drainage area is right to the west, where it's going right now, which then will drain through the park and over to Cuyahoga. So, over on Highwood now. This was the eastern area too. So there's the 2 sewers here. The sewer does step up. The records indicate this sewer was from 59. So this is more of a nerd fact here. I was interested. They actually have a 39-inch sewer, which is odd because they don't make those anymore. They stopped in the 60s. But it steps up and it will go through this flow path, goes down Highwood, and it makes a right to go to the east into Monroe Falls into the open channel and kind of goes through that neighborhood here. But these 2 sewers are under capacity for the drainage area as it stands. And then the last thing, down in Mineral Falls. So here's the couple pictures of the open channel. For this, we surveyed a couple cross sections in between because it transitions from culverted to open channel back to culverted across the roads. So from the different cross sections, then we took a look at them to see what they look like for the capacity in comparison to the sewers. And the worst one was actually a section 3, so it's between Cathy and Charing Cross down there. So for about a 10-year, which is close to a typical year storm, that channel would be about full to the banks. Now the note on that is that assumes everything's dead clear, so there's no obstructions. Anything there could ripple back on. So you get something catching or you get debris building up downstream, now you've got some more problems there too. Okay, so we went through the conditions, we went through the problem areas. Well, you hired us, so we got to come up with some solutions too. So first one we noticed there and we looked at there is a lot of the streets over in this area are the roadside ditches. So they can be prone to debris building up, and the other thing too is because it is so flat, when the area starts to get a lot of rain, everything sheet flows, and it can sheet flow off the street and not go to the catch basins, and then can make the problems worse for the residents there because of the sheet flow. So the first thing we looked at there is if we were to curb and gutter and do the sewers size properly, because there's a couple of the other ones there that weren't surcharging, but they were over about 80% capacity for a typical year, which doesn't leave a whole lot of room in there for any river storms. But kind of rolling down this one pretty early, we ruled this out just from a cost feasibility standpoint. The other note there is there's a lot of catch basins right now. So this would have cut down on some of the catch basins to help with the maintenance. But from the cost point there, we realized that wasn't really feasible. So we took a look at some more targeted areas. So on Maple Road here, there's a bigger lot there. It looks pretty prime, so we took a look. Could we put a basin there? And try to offload some flow so that way it can be stored there before it's released downstream. They would require some new sewers on Maple to make the grades work, and then tie in a new relief into an existing one. Now, the problem being there is it's the topography. It's so flat, and the storm sewers being shallower sewers, we weren't able to get enough depth in that basin, even for how big it is, to offload enough flow there to really make an impact. It did help, but there was still surcharging in the existing highwood sewers if we were to do this. So there's still some recommendations that can come out of this, because there's two little localized relief sewers because of that could be done. One would be up off the towpath there for that 2026, just to relieve a little low point there. And the other one would be with extending that existing relief sewer that's in the backyards between Maple and Echo. That would help give some of that low-lying area a chance to drain. Because the picture there on the top right, they've actually put lights up there because the water stays almost, it looks like the whole year, that it was a nice little skating pond in the winter for you. I don't know if you want to do that, but it's a low spot that's there. And it doesn't, because of the soils as mentioned earlier, it doesn't drain very well. Now, like I said there, that still doesn't get to the crux there is, Highwood would still be undersized. So the main recommendation here for the eastern area number 2 is the sewer on Highwood going into Monroe really needs to be upsized to provide the capacity for the water to flow out of the area. And from looking at that on the calcs there, it would have to go to a 48. But that's still, we still have one more issue downstream on that, is the open channel sections in Monroe. Even if we were to fix the Highwood sewer and upsize that, until the channels are improved there, and that you can see kind of what the water's doing. There's no head walls on some of these outlet pipes. The water's going there. The channels would need to be improved to increase the capacity there to let that 48-inch sewer actually convey the flow out of the area. Now, there was one more area there in Stow we looked at, and it was over at 1996, this property off of Echo. Now, this area is in the western drainage area, but it's right on that dividing line. So it's a flat area up top before it starts, the slope starts increasing down to the west towards 91. There's also another flat area there that keeps the water. You can kind of see in the middle picture. It's because of the smaller size. So it was about like 3.75 acres. And for reference, the whole area that's draining down towards Monroe Falls and out of that is 193 acres. So we're talking a small piece here. But to put a relief sewer in there with a couple catch basins, and then we would actually be taking it from the west and kicking it to the east. We could roll down I'm blanking on that road right now, but down to Pinehurst there and connect into the existing storm system there. We looked at that. That will not make anything worse right now because of the small size of the area to improve this. We'll note the 114 Pinehurst in Monroe Falls actually has similar drainage issues there for those residents there in the back because it holds water. So that was the other area looked at for Stow, and then the solution for the recommendations there. So
Questions? Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. This, can we go back to, I think it's showing the one solution, it's the outfall at, on 91 there.
the outfall in 91, yes. Though
A question, it's probably a two-part question, but I guess, Mr. Jones, obviously with the 91 project going on right now, there's an opportunity to fix that problem. Do we know if that actually is included in the 91 project to upsize or do whatever we got to do here? Are you aware of what's taking place at this location since there's already existing storm there? Are we doing any storm work in that section?
The original 91 reconstruction project does not include any storm sewer work at this location. Those plans were completed before the study was finished, obviously. So I would kind of maybe defer to Brooker and see, I know Kyle mentioned that it's showing a surcharge during the calculations, but because of the head pressure that's in that catch basin, that could be saving it from actually surcharging. And Don, are you aware of any major issues of the surcharging at that location?
No, we really haven't seen much. The only time we see any issues, of course, when that area gets over, like in the fall when it's covered with leaves and stuff like that. But in the normal flows throughout the year, we haven't had hardly any problems.
And I will note for the calcs, they're looking at the specific pinch points on the pipe segments there. As far as the system on a whole, you'd have to build a much bigger hydraulic model to run the whole system there. But that was why the system here showed the pipe being undersized, but because it has a drop on it for the water to build a surcharge or a head pressure, it can force more through it. And that would be why it wasn't on the recommendations there. It's based on not seeing reports of flooding, but it was one of the areas, obviously we noted the outlets for the pinch point, so.
I guess what's the drainage area that this particular outlet is, how much drainage of the study area, how much of it's coming to this point as the outfall?
So, western number 2, it's about 35 acres.
About
Rolls
35
to-
acres. So what's the
rolls
current, do you know what the current size pipe there is now?
It's a 15-inch.
A 50-inch?
15.
15. So taking on 35 acres of, and that's probably, what's the design of those, a typical design? I don't know how old that system is. So it's probably designed for what, a 25-year storm, would you say, or maybe a little more?
Normally, they are. And it really depends on slope for pipe size. For reference there, a lot of the pipes that feed to that because of the steep slope are only 12 inches. And they have a decent capacity there. So,
In your professional opinion, with the presentation that you provided here today, do you see this, with all the solutions that you proposed, even if we didn't accept them all or whatever, do you see this ultimate location being an area that's going to have to be upsized regardless of what's done in the other areas of this area?
So because of the head that can build in that for how the system was set with the storm, which is fairly typical for storm systems, you can have head built in it for smaller pipes for cover there going across because that's the low spot. This was not an area of concern for us, and we didn't have it on one of the solutions there.
Okay.
We just noted it as a problem area for how the calculations were done for the study. So,
Okay, well, the only reason I asked Mr. Jones is obviously we want to take advantage when we get to that area of the road being opened. If this is an area that we need to do work to, just because it wasn't included in the original bid, you could agree that it's not that it can't be added, correct?
Correct.
And it potentially could be eligible for the funding splits. If not, the worst case scenario, it's 100% locally funded, correct?
For the scope of the project, that was scoped for the grant. I am not 100% sure, but I can get answers.
Was there any stormwater work on the entire project that these funds are being, how many funding sources are there? I mean, I understand
Yeah,
what you're saying.
there was some storm sewer work because we were removing some old and replacing, we were removing some old I-2 inlets, which are those concrete coffin top that you see on the side of the road, but because those inlet capacities are greater than the current catch basins that are installed today, ODOT 3s, we have to add one more every time we remove another one. So there is some storm sewer work because of the removal of those concrete catch basins.
Okay, and when is this section of 91 slated for reconstruction?
Next year.
Next year. So we have from now until next year to look at this area, determine if we need to do work there, because once they open the road, that's the opportunity to get in there and do it, as opposed to coming the following year, ripping it back up and doing the work. So I would like to at least look at this area in consideration as we go through this process and determine ultimately what it is that we want to do. If this is an area that needs to be remediated, it's money well spent while there's a contractor already in there, right? Because you're not going to be paying mobilization maybe, regardless, the mobilization costs will be down. They're already there, so you're really talking material and labor. So if we could do something there to help mitigate some of the issues, I think it's money well spent. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and that road's going to be closed to local traffic anyway because of the Monroe Falls Bridge.
Correct.
So that would be an ideal time to have that taken care of if we determine that it's necessary.
I think we could quickly assess the condition of the storm sewer via like underground camera inspection and, go from there. See what the condition is. If it's in poor condition, then yeah, that's probably a good time to replace it. If it's in good condition and with Kyle's recommendation, we'll have to see if it's worth replacing.
Yeah, because we waited forever to get that road paved, and the last thing I want to do was just,
Understood.
A year later, tear it up again.
We'll look further into it.
All right, excellent.
Yep.
Further questions? Mr. Feldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me ask you,
I'm a little confused on your solutions.
Okay.
Can you clarify for me and be a little cleaner on, the first one you said, too much money. Then you said maybe this one. So I'm a little lost on, I'm interested in solutions.
Got it.
Right? And I need to know A, B, and C, right? Because we want to do something. I appreciate Mr. McIntyre saying, it's going to be tore up.
Yeah.
Let's fix it, right? So they've waited long enough. I've walked the road during water.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, right? We need to do something. So I need a solution that's reasonable, common sense, and we can get on board with. So what would you, as the professional, say we should do?
So for the eastern area there, the biggest thing is going to be upsize Highwood. There's a caveat to that, though. For the Highwood sewer, the channel needs downstream in Monroe needs the capacity increased.
Yeah.
So if the channel is stabilized and capacity increased, then Highwood could be upsized. That's the biggest solution out of there is the Highwood sewer needs upsized. But again, you can't, even if you upsize it, if the channel downstream can't handle the flow, you're still going to have water issues because it needs somewhere to go.
So we got pipe size problems all
Yes.
over the place, right?
Yes.
I mean, if that's what I was saying to a resident on Highwood or on Echo, that's what I would say, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions?
Thanks. Yeah, just to help me understand, based on this, my understanding is that instead of diverting the water westward toward Darrow Road, the preference would be to divert it southward toward Monroe Falls, but we would need to be working with Monroe Falls to increase the capacity of the water flow in that direction.
So the diversion from the west to the east really only applies to the 1996 Echo. So that could be done now. So that small little relief sewer would take that drainage area and kick it from, instead of going west towards Darrow, it goes east towards Highwood. That would help alleviate there. That could be done now without impacting the channel capacity downstream because it's so small. The problem there with Highwood, why you couldn't upsize that until the channel is, that one is, what's Highwood got? That drains about 76 acres versus 3. So 76 has got a lot more flow contribution.
Further questions? Mr. Feldman?
So I appreciate you helping. I'm still trying to get some clarity.
No problem. That's why I'm here.
So with pipe size and fixing one section, we should fix something before the detention, and we're good at that. If you drive around Stow, you see tons of them. We have detention ponds everywhere, right? So we need to do that, right? And then fix pipe. And how much would it cost?
Okay. The channel would need to be fixed on Monroe because that's where the eastern drainage area goes to. Let me see if I can get this up here. So, looking at the channel there, and I should, so I got the cost for the smaller little section there. We did do a rough cost estimate for the Highwood, for the sewer upsize there, and I believe on a class 5 estimate for today's dollars. It's in the back in the appendix, I'd have to go look at it, but it was over $500,000 for construction cost for doing that.
So the first section is $500,000, that's what you said, right? I know these are estimates.
Yep.
I get it. And then the second piece would be how much? On the two you talked about?
So The smaller little section there off of Echo for the 1996.
Yep,
That would be about 160K is what we're a class 4 estimate. Is what we did.
and that gets the water,
That gets the water out of that lowest spot between Stow and Monroe Falls. So
which is
between
right
Echo-
around 1996, correct?
Yeah, that was the closest property for the problem area there. For the Highwood, yes, it is, it was half a mil, call it there for now. But that can't happen until the channel's done, down in Monroe.
Okay, so channel first, then the other, do A and B, and from what I heard you say, it's 500,000 and 150,000, right?
Yes,
Estimates, I get it, right?
yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. I guess obviously so I can understand, and to kind of piggyback off of Mr. Feldman. Mr. Feldman, obviously, for stormwater, you always build from the outlet to the inlet, so that channel is the outlet, right? So we have to build
Yes.
back, and the channel portion of it is in Monroe Falls. Is any of the upsize on Highwood within the city limits of Stow, or is it all within the city limits of Monroe Falls?
It would actually go into Monroe Falls because it would have to connect to the existing infrastructure at Pinehurst. So the intersection of Pinehurst and Highwood, which is just past the border. So that sewer would need upsized from Echo to Pinehurst there.
What's the current capacity of the channel now? You said the channel is a hybrid, it's a mix of channel and then there's culverts that cross roads and things, so it kind of goes from one to the other, but what's the overall capacity of that open channel?
Right now, I believe it's barely got the 10-year or the typical, so.
And in your recommendation, what does that channel need to be upsized to in order to alleviate the issues we're seeing over here?
Based on the flows right now for the channel, especially with the erosion there, it would need widened and stabilized to give the cross-sectional area to convey the flow.
In the grand scheme of things, widening a channel is probably one of the most economical, right? There's not a lot of material to it, it's mostly labor and equipment with the exception of culvert crossings and things like that. That probably is one of the most economical parts of alleviating flooding in this area, would you agree?
It would probably be the most economical. It would be the most permit-ridden too, because now you've got EPA and you've got a couple other hoops to jump through. But
You're gonna have that no matter,
you're going to have that. You're going to have permits no matter what. But yes,
so I mean, the last two, like at the issue that you spoke of in the center of Echo, that's gonna alleviate, how many acres did you say was draining? That'll kind of help to mitigate?
So in the middle of Echo, let's see, maybe eastern area, you're about 47. So as you go downstream, more components get in there, and that's where the acreage goes up.
So, and now, coming off of that system that you're talking there at Echo and tying into the system there that ultimately goes into Pinehurst, right?
Oh, so you're down for
Yes, how many acres, that's the one I was talking about,
3.75.
How much?
3.75, call it 4.
So basically, a few individual properties is
Yes.
gonna help fix their personal issues and nothing, I mean, it's gonna help alleviate flooding, but, okay. I'm just trying to understand, because obviously the cost of that is really, is the system there in Monroe Falls able to handle?
It is able to handle that 4 acreage for what would be kicked that way.
Okay. Last question I have, looking at all of this that you just presented today, how many, you could do this as all as one large project, but it's really a lot of smaller projects, would you agree? Just given their proximity, one here, one's there, I mean, you could do it all as one big package, but ultimately, everything needs to start at the channel to kind of start working our way back to fix this whole issue that that you presented on today. Is that a fair
Correct.
statement?
Yeah, yes, it would lend itself more towards smaller projects.
Okay. How many how many projects would you say are here to fix this issue?
4.
4. And how much time would you need between this meeting and would you have enough time between this meeting and our next meeting to put together an estimated cost for 4 smaller projects and present it back to this council so we understand the costs associated? We know it's dollar, I work in this industry, so I know the dollars today are not going to be the dollars tomorrow, but it's at least a good starting point. Because as Mr. Feldman alluded to, we're about solutions. As Mr. Real alluded to, this isn't like something that just popped up in the last 5 years. This has been ongoing before I even moved into this city. So while it's nice that we're doing a study, this is a solution-oriented council, and we're all about making solutions. Is there enough time between now and our first meeting, our only meeting in July, to come back and present to us 4 smaller projects and estimated costs?
Yes, there is.
Mr. Jones, is that going to, whatever increase of cost that may be to our scope of services with them? I mean, I can't speak for Mr. Reel, he's the chairman of this committee, but I think it's worth bringing these back, smaller projects, and putting it on paper to say, hey, here, we see what we have, but now let's break them out into projects and let's see how we can fund them.
Yeah, and what I would just say is that, engineering and city council, we are no strangers to multi-year projects. I mean, the Oak Road, Holy Family, what was that, 4-year project? With $4 million, I believe, from Oak Road all the way down to Silver Lake Towers. That was a multi-year, multi-project solution. So, Mr. McIntyre, we're not a stranger to those type of, issues and solutions.
And obviously, we can't speak for, I see the mayor's here today from Monroe Falls, but obviously, they're, they're going to have some skin in this game, because obviously I'm sure they have residents that have the same issues that are over there. And ultimately, a lot of this starts within their city limits. So obviously, it's going to have to be conversations had with the city of Monroe Falls to see how we can work to get that problem fixed too.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, just to answer your question, Jeremy, I believe there's enough contingency quantity in the study proposal for them to provide us with some cost estimates and I'll let Kyle review the numbers, but we should have enough in there to come up with some estimates.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Further questions? What I'll do now is now I will open up to comments from the audience. Should you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized by me. You'll be given up to 3 minutes to speak. Feel free to ask questions to anyone here. I know we have some friends from Echo Road here. Anything you will say is part of the permanent record. Yes, sir. But just please come to the microphone and give me your name and address, and then make your comment.
Yes, my name is James Houston, and my family and I live at 2059 Echo Road, smack in the middle of the hole in the ground. We've been in this area for 2 years. We have had repeated issues with standing water in the backyard. We have made moves to correct it to our ability. I guess my biggest question is, the property directly behind us is, I think, where you're speaking of putting the basin. And I guess my biggest question is, do you have an idea of how you're approaching that? There's no way to bring equipment through our yard because there's no room to either side of our house. It's a fairly narrow lot. Is this a situation where you're going to have to come in from Maple and cut those trees down and excavate from the Maple side?
So I would like to just clarify one thing. We did look at the basin. It was reviewed as a potential solution. It's not a recommendation because the basin can provide enough capacity.
Okay. So
because of this,
okay.
as you know, it's so flat. We need some depth to get capacity.
Well, I guess my question becomes, what has happened is in the past, neighbors either side of us have more than likely raised their property levels by adding soil. And unfortunately, we're between 2 areas where both yards are about 3-4 inches higher than ours. And since the soil is not permeable, it all comes down to there. We have pet ducks in our backyard. That's the state of things. With that water settling there, I really don't understand how the water that settles in our yard is going to get to this to drain off.
So the one recommendation out of the study there is to grade the back for a drainage ditch there and extend. There is a relief sewer that cuts between Maple and Echo, and there's one leg that kicks off of that. So the recommendation is to extend that so it could drain the wooded area, the low point there, as well as help drain that central.
Okay.
But the caveat there is you need the downstream for Highwood to hold the pipe, and then you need the downstream for, so.
I see. That was really our main question, just understanding how this is going to, not to be, what's in it for me, but understand what's going to affect our property. So that was really my only question. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of those properties back there are just perpetually wet. Even during the last storm, trees fell down in the woods on the neighboring properties. You know, those yards are just wet, you know, constantly. And one other thing that I'd point out about the detention basin solution is it's up to the property owner if he wants to sell those properties. We had a wonderful solution over on Marhofer that involved, what, 3 or 4 properties. 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 4 agreed to sell. The other one didn't. So we can't go in there through eminent domain and just say, hey, we're going to take this over for this project. It's all on whether or not the property owner wishes to sell. And I think that property's been in that family, I think, for 70 years. And they have entertained numerous offers to buy that property. And so far they've held out not selling it. So it's just one of the challenges that, you know, that we face as a city. Further questions or comments? Okay, so we have our marching orders here next meeting. If there's a problem with that, let me know. We do have a meeting, first week of August, if for whatever reason that's too short of time frame. Seeing no other questions or comments, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, no's, abstentions. This meeting's adjourned.
Cool, yeah. I call to order the Stow City Council Planning Committee meeting for June 26, 2025 at 6:13 p.m. I and the other members of the committee are all present, with Vice Chair Mario Fioca, Councilman John Bernick, and Council President Kyle Feldman, who has temporarily stepped out but will be back shortly. Planning Director's report. Oh, actually, do we have a motion to approve our minutes from our June 12th meeting?
Move to approve as circulated.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
3 yeses, and minutes are approved. Planning Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Just a couple items. Somewhat of an update on the bowling alley. They're still working on the plans. They were intending to submit plans in the next couple weeks, but they just emailed me today, just says they're delaying it so they can further refine them. So we're looking forward to seeing those renovations come up. And then we do have some conceptual plans from Aldi to tear down the Save-A-Lot at the Graham Square Plaza on Graham Road. So they would tear that down. They would also do a entire building facade upgrade on the rest of the building and construct a new Aldi there. So we're hoping to see that application come up in the next couple months. Thank you.
Questions? Mr. Fioca.
I'm assuming the existing, they're not moving, it's just, it'll be a second one in Stow. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it'll be a second one.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Burbanek.
Could you also in your report address what the great news we got this week as far as the grant for Seasons on Allen Road?
Yeah, so with the help of engineering department, we identified that we need a traffic signal at the corner of Seasons and Allen Road. We applied for a grant through the Transportation Improvement District funding for $300,000, which we were awarded. So that will cover a significant cost of that traffic signal at that intersection. So happy to report that.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Cowan, as far as all the, obviously council's approved a lot of things over on Kent Road here more recently. I think there's Panda Express, obviously. There's the apartments I think that are going on back there. There's the the assisted living facility or the skilled nursing facility, obviously Chick-fil-A. Can you give us an update on everything that's going on there, what you're hearing, when we may see ground broken on some of the projects that are going on over there, when we can expect those that are currently under construction or anticipate opening and things of that nature?
Yeah, I was hoping to have some more concrete updates by this meeting, but as far as I know, everything's still proceeding. I know Chick-fil-A and Sheetz, they were looking to break ground sometime this summer, probably later in the summer. Everyone right now, like all the applications that have recently been approved, on Kent Road, they're all working through their building permits, so they're all proceeding. And the assisted living facility that was approved on Allen, they already started digging dirt and grading and getting ready for construction at that facility as well. So everything's moving forward. Next time I can bring an actual list of recent developments and hopefully
Has
have
there
some more
been any
updates.
discussion? I know when the Chick-fil-A and that whole parcel was taken up here, I know there was mention of potentially the developer coming back to the city for a TIF. Where are we at with that? Has there been discussions related to that?
Yeah, there's been several. We're still talking with the developer whether a TIF or a community reinvestment application is appropriate for that development. So I just had a call with him yesterday about it. So we're still working to find the best solution for that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for our planning director? Seeing none, we'll move on to business 2025-127.
All right, thank you. So these resolutions, there's 3 resolutions on the agenda, one for each draft chapter of the code update. These were the first drafts that we got early in the process. I think back in March or February we got these. They went through steering committee. We presented them to planning commission. Everyone, got everyone's support and a recommendation to continue working forward on these. These resolutions are, they're basically just resolutions in support of the major changes of the code. They're not set up to adopt the code in any way. It's basically just a, hey, I agree with this, where this is going. The major changes are okay, and basically proceed. It's a letter of support for these draft chapters. So this went to the planning commission a couple weeks ago, and they recommended approval of the resolution as well. All right, so this presentation, I'll just run through all the chapters, then we can come back through and discuss each one. So chapter 2, and by the way, I'm going to go over the major changes. I'm not going to go into every little detail on these. I know as exciting zoning code is for everyone, I want to be very mindful of everyone's time. So with that being said, I encourage you to continue reviewing the code. If you have any questions on anything specific, please reach out. We're happy to meet with you guys and just continue working on this. So chapter 2 is base districts. This just establishes the base zoning districts for the city. The biggest changes you'll see are consolidating commercial districts from 8 districts now down to 3. And then we would consolidate the industrial districts from I-1 and I-2 to just I industrial. We were working on the industrial districts and fixing the uses and lot area and setback, and they just became one and the same. So steering committee recommended that we consolidate those districts. We would add a public institutional district to better accommodate properties for government buildings. The airport would be a public institutional district. School property would be a use appropriate for the public institutional district. And then a new one is a major plan development. These zoning districts are becoming more common to better allow for more infill development. The way it works is it'd be for bigger projects, anywhere we're still deciding on what that threshold is, whether it'd be at least 5 acres and above. But how it would work is a developer would come in, they would basically write their own zoning code, and then it'd be a rezoning process. They have to come in, get approval through planning commission and council based on their zoning code that they want to write for this specific site. And then any future applications for that site, we would just defer to that development text that they got approved rather than the zoning code. So again, it's to allow for more flexible development where the zoning code may not just work for this project that they want to do. Another alteration is the lot sizes. So mostly across the board, we would propose to reduce the minimum lot size requirements. A couple reasons. One is we see a lot of variances for these, and two, they did a consultant did a nonconformity analysis in the residential districts and found that almost across the board that about 60% of our residential lots do not meet the minimum lot size requirements today. So that's just been done over time, over 70 years, 80 years, that they just haven't met the minimum code requirement. So we would propose to reduce lot sizes. R1 will go from 20,000 to 15,000, R2 from 16,000 to 10,000, and R3 from 12,000 to 7,000 square feet. Those would not bring them down to 100% conformance. It would bring them down to about 20%, 15 to 20% in conformance with the existing lot sizes around the city. Commercial properties, we would propose to eliminate the minimum lot size. That is another very common variance that we see quite too often. This applies to the industrial district as well. It's becoming more common to not require minimum lot sizes. Developers will build on the property that they need. They'll still need to meet the setback requirements and landscaping and open space requirements. But taking out the minimum lot size requirement will just alleviate, one of those variances that they would need. And then conservation district would remain the same at 5 acres, which would be appropriate for the parks. And then public institutional, 4 acres, and the major plan development. We're looking at anywhere 5 acres and up. I know it says 4, but we'd increase that. And then the other major change in Chapter 2 is a reduction of lot widths. Again, another variance that we see, especially for commercial and industrial. Mostly across the board, they are a minimum 100 feet to 120 feet of lot width requirement. We would propose to take that down to 50 feet. So those are the major changes in Chapter 2. Again, it's the establishment of the base districts, establishes lot size, setbacks, and whatnot. Before I move on to Chapter 3, any questions about this section? Yes. Sorry, yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Real.
Thank you. It's one thing to see like numbers on a page, but I think it's better to try to visualize this. So let's bring up everyone's favorite topic, Miller's Landing, right, where they went in there and they developed it by right. So under these new changes or proposed changes, they would have been able to put more homes over there.
Yeah, so the requirement now there are R2, so 16,000, so the minimum lot size would be 10,000, so they would be able to fit some more homes.
So instead of the 40-some homes, it would have been like 50.
What's that?
So instead of like the 40-some homes, proposed homes, it would have been like, what, 50?
Likely, yeah.
Mr. McIntyre.
Under, obviously, to kind of go along with what Mr. Real said, Miller's Landing initially proposed a, PRD over there?
Yeah.
What's the current minimum lot size on a PRD?
I have to double check. A PRD is, there's a minimum tract of property. It's like, you can apply for a PRD if it's at least 20 acres or something like that.
But it makes the minimum lot width on each, there's a minimum lot width, right? Makes it, because it looks like R3 high density residential, 12,000 to 7,000. To me, that looks like you're effectively creating a PRD without having to go through the process of a PRD.
A PRD does allow for smaller lot sizes, but it also requires buffer areas and space for preservation around the development.
And where are the current areas, I guess, when you look at vacant land in the city of Stow right now, how much R3 is currently vacant?
Not much. I can pull up those numbers for you next time.
So so the areas currently right now that are R1, R2, and R3, they're going to hold the R1, R2, R3.
Yeah, those are not changing.
And any property that's in there is grandfathered in, whether they meet the minimum lot requirement or not, right?
Correct.
Because obviously, I'm assuming if you're decreasing lot size, a lot of them are going to be grandfathered in, if not most, right?
Yeah, if anything, it will just correct people's non-conforming lot sizes. And I don't anticipate this allowing for many more major subdivisions, but it might allow for a couple property owners to split their property in half and put a new home next to them.
Now, when we sat here over, I've been on council now going on 6 years. When you look at these districts, let's just say for argument's sake, what problem does changing this now seek to fix that we've been dealing with from a zoning issue, whether it be variances, everything else that's necessitating? For example, let's just keep on the R1, 2, and 3, right? Mm-hmm. Have there been a lot of variances and things of that nature that is why we're proposing reducing lot sizes? I'm just trying to understand what problem have we had with our current zoning code does this rewrite seek to fix?
I think we've had quite a few since I've been here for residential variances, and we get often calls where people do want to split their property and they don't meet the requirement, and that just deters them away from going through the process. But the other thing is that it's 60% nonconformity across the city, which is not best practice. We want to make sure that these laws can be brought at least close to conforming with the code requirement.
We're 60% non-conforming.
Yes.
So what percent will we be conforming with this rewrite?
In the residential districts, between 15 and 20% conformance.
15, 20%. But as a city as a whole, you're saying as a city as a whole, right? That's 15 to 20% residential. But where does it fit? If we're 60% as a city for residential, you're saying, or just in general, we're in
for the residential lots.
Okay, but where are we at overall with all districts?
I don't have that number. I can pull that up for next meeting though, or send you an email.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, we're looking at all these things, and I know, I want to understand what this seeks to fix, right? Have we had a lot of variances, like signs? I can't wait till we talk about signs, right? Because that's we've issued so many variances related to signs, so I can't wait to see, is it going to stop future variances requests? No. We can keep changing it, it's still going to get variances, but that's the whole intent behind this, is to fix issues that we've had, right?
Yeah.
Not just rewrite an outdated zoning code, which we need, but also fix some issues.
Yeah,
So.
I know that variances that you guys commonly see is minor subdivision variances, basically a lot split variance, which is very common for commercial industrial property. And we do get them for residential from time to time. We do get quite a few calls about it. But honestly, I think commercial and industrial developers can just afford that process a little bit better. So.
Thanks. Yeah, and just to add some additional context, the steering committee ourselves had a bit of time to getting our heads wrapped around how the numbers match up to what we were trying to achieve and visualizing it and stuff like that. But based on our understanding of like the explanation by the consultants and our understanding of the needs of our city, is that we are pretty much built out in all of our residential areas. We don't have big open fields left for a Miller's Landing situation to happen anymore. So these are more getting our standards in line, more so in line with what we actually currently have, when we were hearing that 60% of what's existing is actually non-compliant with the large lot sizes, and looking into the future of, we're unlikely to have a major new development come in. We're more likely to see redevelopment happening over time as people move and sell properties and rebuild, and this would just allow a little more flexibility for different types of dwellings, especially when we got a lot of feedback from residents about how they would appreciate flexibility for things like in-law suites and other things like that.
Okay, thank you. So I'll continue on to chapter 3. This is the overlay districts. So we would reduce some of the underutilized overlay districts, which includes like the Darrow Road overlays, which has been restricted for development. Stow Kent overlay, we would build in some of those uses into the new C3 zoning district in this area. So, we would still retain those uses. Gilbert Road overlay is a odd area of the city where there's an overlay that allows for office development in the middle of a residential neighborhood. It's never been utilized, so we would propose to take that out, and we would keep the Seasons Road overlay and the Mudbrook setback overlay. The new ones would be the mixed use overlay and the minor plan development overlay. So for the mixed use one, I think we've discussed this briefly before, but this would be the general area of that overlay between Graham Road and Kent Road. We did take this to Planning Commission as a study item on May 27th. We sent notices to residents within 300 feet of this overlay just to let them know that we want to get their feedback, that we are proposing this. We had a couple dozen people come out and give their feedback. Is mostly positive. You know, they had some concerns that if it does ever get developed, you know, they had concerns about traffic, but overall, positive feedback. So the way this would work and the intent of this overlay is to try to foster a pedestrian-oriented mixed-use development. You know, if there's anyone in the city that has a natural downtown area, it would be the city center within this overlay. So these regulations would help create a more walkable environment that residents have been asking since I've been here, at least. So we would entertain proposing uses for mixed use, you know, residential above, and commercial on the ground floor, community theaters, you know, there's office, there's a bar, tavern, nightclub use, which is still up for discussion. Again, these are drafts. We're absolutely okay if we want to take that out. We've had some concerns about that. Yeah, this would require buildings to be closer to the road, parking in the back. So again, that it creates that walkable environment. And then the minor plan development overlay. So this is similar to the major plan development, except that the base zoning district would still remain. Somebody could apply for an overlay district, which would be the same as rezone the property, create a new overlay. They could request site development allowances, or kind of like variances. And they could do that as long as they meet some certain modification standards. They could make sure that the site is environmentally sustainable. If they're providing housing, they could propose affordable housing or accessible design, or other requirements that go above and beyond the code requirements under this overlay. So again, this is just another tool to allow for flexible infill development. All right, so that's what I got for chapter 3. Any questions on overlays?
Mrs. Coffey?
Thank you. Yeah, not a question. That was a concern that I had with the bar nightclub being permitted, because it's normally only permitted in C2 and C3, but then it would also be proposed in mixed use overlay districts. And I was just concerned about, you know, adjacent residents not wanting that near their homes.
Mr. McIntyre?
Mr. Cox, moving forward with this process, obviously, you know, we talk about proposed uses and things of that nature. Where is the definition section that defines these, right? Because obviously, if you're going to put bar, tavern, and nightclub, certainly they all three have a different definition of what they are, right?
I think in this case, they would be tied into the same definition, which we have a draft of the definitions that we're reviewing now that we can send. We'll probably have those wrapped up within a week that we can send to council.
Okay. Do we better define what a city block is considered, so we don't have the same issues we have with Miller Landing? Do we better define what a cul-de-sac, whether it's temporary or permanent, in this zoning code, so we don't have the issues that we had with Miller's Landing?
We're fixing all of that,
Right,
yes.
there's a lot of ambiguities and in the current zoning code, which I think have been brought to when we first visited the idea here. As far as like the Darrow Road overlay, obviously, you know, when you got feedback for this area, because I can assure you the feedback that when this was initially proposed, it wasn't proposed the way you guys proposed it as mixed use.
Yeah.
It was this huge it was just this huge downtown, you know, that was the narrative. And sometimes, you know, in years past, downtown has had a negative connotation to it, just like a rec center has had negative connotation in this city. So it's the use of it's whatever you're using. But I know there was a lot of people that came out against this proposal initially a few years ago. So I guess I'd be curious when was that meeting that you had?
That was May 27th.
And you say within 300 feet, how many residential parcels did that include?
I have to check our mailing list. Yeah, but I mean, like that's typically the buffer that we send out notices for planning commission in any application.
So I'm assuming obviously all the properties on, at least on Elm and that were all notified, obviously, because.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, overall, very positive feedback. The only concerns that we have been about increased traffic in the future. And we've made it clear that we're not saying that we have a developer lined up that's going to do this immediately. It just gives people that flexibility to develop their property like this.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see definitions because
Yeah.
I will say the initial proposal, the only thing that was ever talked about there that kind of, I think, ruined it for everything was bars. Bars,
Okay.
that's what it's all going to be. So if we're not going to, we need to define what a bar, tavern, and nightclub is, even though they're all probably the same
Yeah.
in terms of, you know, they're all synonymous with each other. But if we're going to say that they're all three permitted here, then what constitutes that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's really subjective as what constitutes a nightclub, bar, tavern.
Yeah, no, I thought right. So I believe it'll be set up as it'll be its own standalone bar without serving food as its primary source of income. So with that being said, we get the concern. We'd be okay with taking that use out. You know, if that means getting council support and planning commission support, of course. So, and we can continue to have that conversation. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Cowan. Yeah, like in my mind, I'm just thinking like, well, we already have the basement across the street that's open till 2 a.m. serving alcohol, but it would be good to like have that distinction of what actually could be allowed under the category of bar, tavern, and nightclub. And also, could you speak to some of what was discussed in steering committee about how council would still have the flexibility to prevent oversaturation of certain types of businesses, and also to help address any potential negative externalities that residents might be concerned about, like noise or hours of operation and stuff like that?
Yeah, certainly for noise and out. We would have stricter buffering requirements and landscaping requirements from these uses abutting residential properties behind them to alleviate some of those concerns, and people were for that. Yeah, and as far as the uses, you know, we want to be permissible in this area because we've heard a big complaint that you can't have, you know, basic, you know, pedestrian oriented uses like restaurants and their road overlays. So it's become difficult. So we want to make sure that those uses are more permissible in this overlay. But
Thanks.
yeah.
Other questions? Okay, I think we can move on.
All right, chapter 4, this is our use standard. So these screenshots do not include every use that's in this table. So it's very long. There's a lot of uses. Again, I'm going to talk about 3 of them tonight. So I encourage you to review. Let us know if you have any questions or concerns about these. We're happy to come back to them. The ones I wanted to go over are cannabis, tobacco retailer, and car wash. So for cannabis dispensary regulations, we would propose to conditionally permit these in the C3 district, only allow 1 in the city, since that was a concern last time we went through this process, and to still prohibit drive-throughs. They still have to be a mile apart per state requirement, and we would consider reducing the 1,000-foot buffer from the residential properties and from schools, playgrounds, parks, to only have the 500-foot requirement from the schools, places of worship, playgrounds, and parks per the state requirement. Doing so under this regulation, it would obviously only allow for 1 dispensary in the city, but they could be located in any of these red areas on this map, which would be the new C3 zoning district. We would still be open to including them as conditional in the I district, which in this case, and remember, we would consolidate the I district, so it would be more permissible in that area. This would further limit it to just these areas if we just keep in the C3. But I really want to get council's feedback on this, on how to proceed. With tobacco retailer, which would include vape shops, we would propose something similar, conditional only in C3. They have to be at least a mile apart from each other, and they would include that 500-foot buffer from schools, libraries, and playgrounds and whatnot. And then car wash facilities, we currently base it on the population of the city, which, talking with a consultant, they recommended do it based on a buffer distance, as we have done in these other uses. So we would conditionally permit them in C3 and require a mile from another existing or proposed car wash. In this case, it would basically limit it to about 3 car washes being allowed in the city, if they're only allowed a mile apart from each other in the C3 zoning district. So looking to get feedback from council on these uses. I know they'll be a topic of conversation going forward. So thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Yeah, for car washes, I mean, for me, it is one thing that it still comes across social media all the time. You're saying how many under this preferred or this, would there be a permitted?
Under this regulation, 3.
3. So essentially, the new C3 becomes the old C5 plus a portion of the existing C3 at the Kent Road area there at Kenton.
Yeah, there's C4, some C5 mixed in. Yeah.
But most everything out near the highways was usually C5, mostly C5, but I think there were some other smaller C4s and things of that nature. Okay. So it would only allow for 3.
Yes.
Which is under the current zoning now, the way it was written by population, only permits 3, with the
4.
exception of
4
depending, 4 if you want to get, because we're a little over that, or a portion thereof, it all depends, right? I think it's, the tobacco retailer, my question under the cannabis dispensary, I'm going to be honest with you, obviously, my position on this has changed a little bit because of the way the state has taken away the incentive to local governments for allowing these within their city, right? I don't think I know Mr. Riley has provided some insight on that. I don't think everything's been finalized regarding that. But my question is, there hasn't been any change on the planning commission, and they're the ones that proposed the initial 1,000-foot buffer. So why did they change now to go to 500?
I think in general, everyone had concerns before about the number of dispensaries that could be around the city whether they kept only the 500-foot buffer or they had 500 feet from this and residential. They're just concerned about the number that could go in. So they're more comfortable with it, that we would put in a requirement to only have 1 in the city.
Okay, and then the tobacco retailers, I guess this might be more of a question for you, Drew, and for you, Zach, as far as, we talked about this earlier, this would be defined more so like that a percentage of their sales is solely for tobacco products or vaping products, correct?
Absolutely. It wouldn't include like a Giant Eagle if they're selling vapes and.
They could sell other things in there, but it's based off of, what would that number be, or what would that percentage look like? Or is there a common percentage? Are there any other communities that would be doing anything like that currently?
When Zach, you can talk to the definition. I know currently when we put the moratorium on, we use 25%, correct, Zach?
25, yeah. I believe that will remain. Yeah.
25%. So a tobacco retailer, 25% of their sales has to be solely tobacco. If it's
25% or more of their sales are due to tobacco products, defined, it's state law defines what they mean by that, then it's considered a vape shop.
Okay, thank you.
And to answer your question too, you mentioned about what other communities are doing. You'll actually see a lot of communities are regulating vape shops. 25% is pretty good, and that's when we did the original draft on it. I think we pulled from Akron, Talmadge, and then the state looked at some things too.
Okay, has there been any other, has there been any other changes to the cannabis on the state end as far as like the incentives from percentage of sales and things of that going local, or is that still being debated?
That hasn't changed. The state budget did not have that provision in it that we discussed before that would take away the city's incentive. There are still those 3 outstanding bills, Senate Bill 63, House Bill, I can't remember all of them, the ones I provided before. None of those have passed or moved on from where they were last time we talked about it. 2 of those did not impact the differentiating of what the allocations are. And I believe the Senate one is the other one that I didn't include in that too. That didn't change anything that the city is getting. It changed some of the state law allocations. So currently there's no proposal to take away the incentive from a city from getting the city fund. From that 10%. 30% of the 10% is what it is.
30% of the 10% would go to the local government.
Correct, yeah.
The only other thing I had under this, not really so much, I know this is the main part, but there was one thing that stuck out to me in this chapter, and I'm still going through all this stuff, but it's particularly related to garage and estate sales. That there's a section in here that literally says, we're going to tell property owners that they can't have a garage sale more than twice a year without applying for a zoning certificate. So my question to you is, before our next time we convene, or not even so much for this, can you look and, I guess, provide us like a synopsis of sections where all zoning certificates are going to be required to be applied for? Because obviously, because it says any family may conduct 2 such sales within a 12-month period upon the property at which they reside for a period not to exceed 3 consecutive days without obtaining a zoning certificate, right? Now we're talking about private property rights, and we're getting to the point where now we want to limit garage sales. People want to sell stuff out of their house. I'm not one to sit here and say, don't do it. No, I will say parking is an issue, but if there's no way this, in this community, I know neighborhood yard sales are very popular, right? And they're advertised pretty, so if it's a matter of just policing, parking enforcement throughout these neighborhoods that do it, because I will say in the neighborhood that I have, people are parking on the hydrant side of the street and then just parked on each side of the street, making it very difficult for cars to get through. But that's just a policing matter of just, bringing somebody through to look at it. But if you could, that's one thing that stuck out to me. So obviously I don't know what the other chapters are going to entail. I don't know what the rest of this is going to entail when I go through it. So
I will say that is an existing requirement.
well, I mean, I'll have to look at that because I'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and limit. That's why we're doing this, right? I know there's been members of council in the past that looked at outdated zoning codes and just codes in general and did away with them. I'm not here to tell people you can't have a garage sale more than twice a year. If you want to sell stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if you're blocking fire hydrants and you're violating those types of things, sure, that's an issue, but nothing that should require a zoning certificate to sell stuff off my property. Yep. So.
Mrs. Coffey.
Yeah, my concern is still the same with cannabis. I voted no last time when it was the Northwest Industrial Quadrant because that was near Walsh and CVCA, but I have just as many concerns with the 500-foot barrier to schools and places of worship. I mean, I don't want them in the city at all. I think people voted to legalize marijuana, but I don't think that means that they want a dispensary in their backyard. So for me, I have concerns about it. Dispensaries being 500 feet from schools, places of worship, libraries, playgrounds, parks.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Feldman?
Thank you, Mr. Herman. But Mr. Cowan, you just said, talking about one off of Mrs. Coffey, there can only be one in the city, right?
Right.
So, quick question on tobacco retailer. And this is my not having enough education on zoning code, as I've learned a lot through this process. We get a lot of complaints from business owners on how they look. I get we're rewriting the zoning code, needs to be done. Here's where you can put them. Is there anything in there about how they look? Or does that get into the sign, right? Because a lot of complaints on how they look. Marketing to underage kids. I'm just telling you comments I've heard. I don't want that here. Look at those people coming in. I don't like the way it looks. I mean, are we going to address that in some way? I mean, I get it. Same point I just made on cannabis. How many can we have, right? If the rewrite, how many? 3? What'd you say?
For cannabis?
No, tobacco. I moved to tobacco retail.
3. Sorry.
How many?
3.
Yeah, so I get it, it's a limited number, but is there anything included on bright lights and it looks like a Christmas entry, right? I mean, we're marketing to kids. It bothers me a little bit, and I've heard that from residents.
There is code in one of the later chapters about prohibiting the neon lighting around windows, so we'll have something sufficient to address that. Also, there's window signage requirements that they have to meet, so.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that, because that's the biggest complaint I've heard, but limiting, I think I agree with, some council members up here on, I don't want to be too restrictive, but we want to limit, because we know our community, we live here, and we represent the people, so, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Coffey?
All right, just another question. So when I was looking through these, and I was looking at the older version that we had, so I'll be anxious to look through the newer version more thoroughly. But I'm just wondering, and I asked Mr. Cowan this earlier, if we could get which businesses received changes to where they're permitted so that we can see, because I mean, I was looking at specific ones, but so that we can see a comprehensive view too of what was changed. If we could get that, that would be great.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. I just have, the overall process here that we're looking at, I mean, I don't understand the purpose behind these resolutions. Once we come before us, we're going to adopt it. I mean, there's a lot of things here that have to change. There's a lot of, I mean, the reality of it is if one chapter fails, right, then the whole thing fails, right? It's not, it's a comprehensive thing. And for me, I talked about this, I don't know how long ago, it wasn't that long ago, as far as bringing this forward to Mrs. Coffey's point about seeing, here's what it was and here's the change. If it's not the same chapter number, that's fine, I get it, right? Things change that way, but the table of conditional and permitted, I want to see that side by side. And not to mention, council rules say how legislation is to be presented to us. Right? It says, here's what the existing and here's what the new is proposed, right? So we can see, and the people can see what the changes that we are proposing to the zoning code. I mean, for me, this process is going to take quite some time, right? Looking at this section, like if we're looking at chapter 2, like we're doing right now, one resolution, then we should have when this time comes, we should have a public hearing on just chapter 2, right? If we're taking up a resolution, when chapter 2 comes back to us for final approval, what's the plan? To bring it just that chapter as part of one ordinance, or is it going to be the whole thing?
It would be the whole thing. So that's why I want to do this process throughout the summer and review these codes and these major changes. I mean, we want to have these conversations early on, so we're not, dragging this out for an extra 6 months, past January. We want to address whatever concerns and comments that council has ahead of time before it comes to you in October or November, just so we can, put those in the code. So
I understand, but I mean, House of Levine, as it stands right now, have had 15 months of this process, and you're asking us to go ahead and knock this out in a few months before January. It's gonna take some time. I mean, I'm in no rush. Are you in a rush? Right? I mean, there's a lot of changes. How many different pages are all these exhibits going to tally up to at this point in time?
So, I mean,
is it going to be over 500?
I don't know the page count, but it's going to be, if I were to give you a red line version, the entire code would be redlined because everything's being reorganized, new chapters, new section head, everything's going to be an entire red line basically. So, and we'll do our best to, point out the major changes. We can give you side by side of the use table. Some of the major things that as we go through in the chapter reviews. But I guess how detailed that council wants to get in these reviews is up to you. I know this is a big change. It's gonna be one big document at the end of this. So we're doing our best to have steering committee meetings, and we had an open house at the library, and we invited people out to planning commission for the overlay. We're going to be doing more things throughout the summer to try to inform people, and we encourage you to come out to continue learning about what we're doing. But again, it's continue reviewing the code even on your own time, and let us know. We'll meet with you individually or two at a time, whatever you guys want to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's my understanding too that these exhibits here today these are exhibits that are wrong, right? These aren't the ones that should have been given. These are different ones? Yeah,
that was my apology. The only changes were the one I emailed you. It just includes the consolidated I districts. It fixed these uses on the screen, and it added the Mudbrook and Season Road overlay. So that was the only changes from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this table and there's supplemental standards and there's just pound signs where there should be numbers. So nothing's really, I mean, I understand. So when can we expect the final chapter 2 to be completely finalized?
So that will be, so the reason for all the pound signs for the future sections are in case there's any changes by, that steering committee recommends or in future chapters, they're not putting those in until the very end. So at this point, we're looking at our next steering committee meeting, July 16th. I'll be sending an email to everyone to confirm. After that, immediately after that, House of Levine will start working on the final draft of the entire code that we'll get. Hopefully by the end of July or beginning of August. Once we have that, there'll be a final steering committee meeting to go over everything, all the changes. It's a public meeting as well. And then we'll have a public open house in August for everyone to come out, learn about what we've been doing. And then the plan is to get this to Planning Commission by September.
How many members of the planning commission serve on the steering committee?
2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Coffey.
Last point is just the, back to the cannabis. With the 1,000-foot barrier from schools, places of worship, libraries, playgrounds, I mean, I wasn't even okay with that, but that's still allowed for one in the city, correct? That was likely.
In a very specific area of the industrial district.
Okay, I mean, to me, this is worse, just because it's even closer to schools and places of worship and libraries, places with children. So like I said, I didn't like the previous one, but I like this less.
I mean, realistically, none of those locations on the screen are walkable from school, though, no matter where they are, like generally, like they're all 1,000 feet from a school anyways. But depending on the way that the law is interpreted, if it also includes things like commercial daycare centers and stuff, then that was what was the complicating factor was that made it difficult. But I think that we had some really good discussion tonight that we can continue, and so without objection, I would like to keep these items in committee so that we can continue speaking with our planning director and with each other about what potential changes we would want to see before the finalized versions are considered on a chapter by chapter basis as we work toward finding consensus for the whole plan. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There's like 3 more slides in here just about accessory building size and accessory dwelling units. But yeah, I don't want to take up too much time. Just want to show you that we're including regulations for accessory dwelling unit. Yep. It's been a big request, and increasing accessory building size, which has been a major variance. So, but I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are at our public comment period, but I do not see anyone here to give public comment on planning, so I will entertain the motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning? Yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
I'm just happy that he's putting them on the agendas now. Normally, you never knew if you got one. Just open up the meeting and then turn it over to him. Okay.
Are you doing the meeting roll call then?
Why do you do the roll call? We'll do the approval minutes, because those.
like to call the meeting, Finance Committee meeting for June 26th to order, and have the clerk please call roll.
Baranek.
Here.
Feldman.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
McIntyre.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to take a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting.
Move to approve the minutes from June 12th, 2025.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Abstentions? Those minutes have passed. We're adding a item on the agenda tonight, and I'm going to turn this over to Mayor Probani.
Fire department come up here. Go ahead, come on. Last meeting, we actually had a very touching meeting as far as our safety forces saving the life of a gentleman in his home, and also his wife broke her hip at the same time and so forth like that. And I don't think a lot of times people realize how busy our safety forces are, whether it's fire or police or whatever. We are 35,000 people. And we do have a large number of nursing facilities also. So that being the case, we have a lot of calls all the time. But again, they do a great job, and I want to applaud both police and fire with that. But if I can go ahead. If I can have Marissa and Lisa come up. Come on. Oh, yeah, you thought you were going to get away without this? No, I don't think so. Okay. Captain, if you want to.
My name is Troy Acker. I am a captain with the fire department. I want to tell you a brief story about an event that occurred in our city on June 5th. On June 5th of this year, I was in command of citywide operations, and shortly after 6 p.m., a 68-year-old man left the basement restaurant, collapsed in the parking lot. He stopped breathing, and his heart stopped beating. He was in cardiac arrest. Marissa had just finished her shift over at Walgreens and was shopping in the same plaza. As she was exiting a store, she saw the man lying motionless in the parking lot. Another woman, Lisa, was standing at his side. Lisa had already called 911, and paramedics were on the way. But Bob couldn't wait that long. He needed help now. Marissa knew exactly what to do. She had recently taken a CPR class. She quickly assessed him and began performing chest compressions. Marissa continued to tirelessly perform those chest compressions for minutes while awaiting for the arrival of paramedics. What she was doing there was moving oxygen through Bob's body, which was giving that to his vital organs and slowing the dying process while help was on the way. Several minutes later, Stow Fire Departments took over care, and the man's heart started to beat again. He was then rapidly transported to a hospital. At that time, we really didn't know who this man was, and Lisa was a big help in identifying him and helping us contact his wife to inform him that a tragedy had occurred. These two individuals behind me represent true heroism in our community. Neighbors helping neighbors, or strangers helping strangers. There's no greater gift that a man could receive than another day on this earth. The gift was a chance for his life to continue. The American Heart Association associates survival from cardiac arrest with early activation of 911, which Lisa did, and bystander CPR, which Marissa did. Both of these rely on members of our community. Without these interventions, even the care from a highly skilled EMS crew may fall short. If you're interested in learning CPR, you can contact us at the fire department. There's also a free app called Pulse Point that will notify you if people in public need CPR, and you can respond to their side. On behalf of the fire department, I extend the most gratitude I can to thank you for your heroic efforts that day. And it's so nice to see you here, Bob.
It's great to see Bob here.
Okay. And I'm going to read a proclamation for each one of you, okay? whereas the city of Stow is honored to acknowledge Marissa Thurston and Lisa Yakabuchi for their quick response on Thursday, June 5th, 2025, when they spotted a gentleman in distress at the Marks Plaza, actually right across the street. And whereas Marissa had just gotten off work from her job as a pharmacy operations manager at Walgreens and went over to Marks. Lisa, the general manager of the basement, was working, and Marissa walked out to Marks and noticed a man lying on the ground. A woman nearby said she witnessed the man just suddenly fall to the ground, whereas Marissa realized the man was purple, had no color to his lips, and was bleeding from the fall. She checked for a pulse and found it to be very thin. So she began CPR. Lisa recognized the man, Bob, who was a frequent patron of the basement, and then began talking and pleading with him to stay with them. They both helped until EMS arrived on the scene and relieved her. And whereas after arriving home, Marissa made a Facebook post on the Stow page in hopes of finding out more information on the man who's leaving behind. The post helped her get in touch with Bob's son, who kept her updated on his condition. And thank you for going even that extra step besides helping me that. Whereas once Bob was off a ventilator in the ICU, he called Marissa to thank her for saving his life and sent Lisa flowers with the same message of thanks. So now, therefore, I, John Kabonic, Mayor of the City of Stow, hereby extend our sincere gratitude to Marissa and to Lisa for caring about others and acting so quickly to get involved in help. Marissa and Lisa, I am so grateful you were both in the right place at the right time. And I know Bob, you feel the same. You both made a difference by taking quick action. And there's no words besides thank you. So again, it is great, first of all, with you two individuals from the basement and also two from Walgreens, two local businesses that we have, that your caring goes beyond the walls of the companies you work with. And that is sincerely appreciated. And as Captain Acker said, it wouldn't have been possible without you. Okay. So, with that being said, Bob, I'm going to let you say a couple words.
Oh, great. You didn't tell me I had to do this.
It was a surprise.
Well, ooh, is that loud? I do have one question I have to ask, in this case, Marissa. I heard from the doctors while I was in the hospital that a good sign of someone performing CPR is when you break or crack some ribs. And couldn't you have just stopped at one or two? She cracked 6, and I'm paying for that right now.
I'm sorry, Bob.
And I'm trying not to laugh because laughing hurts.
Yeah.
And my wife told me it would not be manly for me to bring my little heart pillow up here to hug.
Aw.
So just want you to know I'm being a little manly here. But I guess what I want to say is, stuff. I'd be remiss if I didn't say there was divine intervention involved, especially when you look at the fact that Marissa, as I understand the story right, was actually leaving Walgreens. And then I don't know if you forgot something or whatever, went back in and then came back out again the second time. And the second time is when I fell. So had she just came out the first time and left, I wouldn't be here. So that being said, I do want to echo the appreciation and say thanks. Wow. Can someone talk about ice cream or football or something?
again, I want to go ahead, and as I was standing there, I was thinking about this. Without you two individuals, the man in the middle would not be present here today. And he knows that, and I know he truly, truly appreciates that. So in your whole life, this will probably be your biggest blessing that you ever gave somebody. But thank you from the bottom of the city of Stow's heart and myself personally for everything that you did for Bob. And we don't want that to happen again, Bob, okay? So, okay. No, that was one time and one time only, so. And thank you to our safety forces for, again, coming through as they always do. But again, thank you. Also, too, there is refreshments and some food out there for anybody who would like to join in the celebration from our local basement. And so please partake. And it's right here in the hallway. So again, you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. It's all boring financial stuff and different things like that. You're the key person, Bob, and we are so happy that you're here with us this evening. Thank you.
Take all the time you want with this, and this couldn't have fallen in any better committee to do. Because I had a similar situation. And without the help of bystanders and paramedics and people that knew what they were doing CPR, I would not be here today. Be on the right side.
You want to take a 5-minute recess? You want to take a recess?
Yeah, we can. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back and re-adjourn. Thank you. we're going to reconvene the Finance Committee for this evening, and we'll move on to the Finance Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Baranek, and thanks for making me the one to follow that presentation. I do not have anything to report tonight. I do have one announcement that I would like to make. We did have a resignation in my department this past week. Jamie Twigg resigned her position. Her last day will be July 4th.
Any questions for Mr. Toppin? Mr. Feldman?
Thank you, Mr. Baranek. Real quick, and this might be for Mr. Riley. Where is House Bill 355 at, right? I mean, I know there was some testimony, I know there's some changes, I just haven't.
The language for House Bill 355 did not go in the budget pass, but it did not go in with that specific language, did not go in with the budget that passed.
So inside millage, we're good?
It's okay for right now.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean it's not going to come back up in the next go-around.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Seeing none, let's move on to our items tonight. Actually, I think this was for Law Director Riley or whatever. I'm not quite sure. It's the ordinance 25-139.
I'll take that one.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Zach?
thank you. Yes, this is for a new TIF for the 600 Seasons Business Center project, which is at the corner of Seasons and Allens for the new 250,000 square foot fog building that was approved just a couple months ago. They've already started grading that project. They do have a CRA agreement for that project. So this is a 30-year TIF, non-school, non-library, so those will remain whole. But this will allow us to capture the property improvements. They are investing approximately $16.5 million on this property, so we'll be able to capture those property tax increases. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move this on to council?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Against, abstentions, that moves on to council. Mr. Brooker, I think we have the next two items.
Thank you, Mr. Baranek. Yes, item B is authorizing the mayor to basically enter in a contract with Henderson. Henderson Products builds all of our large snowplow trucks and salting equipment, and they are pretty much proprietary to the equipment we need to maintain them. This year, we have went quite a ways into a lot of repairs. With last winter being as bad as it was, a lot of our stuff needed more maintenance than we normally had, as well as a lot of costs have increased. So basically, this is just increasing our expense to get materials from Henderson to keep our fleet in check for the winter.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brooker? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move this on to council?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Against, abstentions, that will get moved on to council. Mr. Brooker.
Thank you, Mr. Baranek. Pretty much the same thing. Akron Freightliner is our preferred dealer. We buy all of our Freightliners through Cleveland Freightliner or Valley Freightliner. Akron Freightliner is a sister company of Valley Freightliner and Cleveland Freightliner. They are local, right down there off of 224, so we get all of our parts for all of the trucks. That's not body related. This would be the stuff that has to do whether the engines, transmissions, stuff like that. So there are some things we have to take that we cannot fix due to computers and stuff like that. But anything we can fix in-house, we still buy a lot of parts from Akron Freightliner. And again, this is just to keep our equipment in check, and it's just increasing the amount that we need for this year.
Any questions for Mr. Brooker on this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move this on?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
Against, abstentions, that gets moved on to council floor. It's the time of the meeting for public comment. If anybody has any public comment for the Finance Committee, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moving second to adjourn. All in favor? Yes. We are adjourned.
I would like to call to order the committee of the whole meeting of June 26, 2025 at 7:38 PM. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Feldman.
Here.
Reel. Coffee. Here. Baranek.
Here.
Bioka.
Here.
McIntyre.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
We have before us, I believe Mr. Reel is here. You can mark him as present. We have before us the minutes from the June 12th committee of the whole meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Law Director's report. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I'd like to ask is at the July 10th meeting, if we schedule an executive session, believe it or not, it's the end of the second quarter. Just wanted to give my quarter litigation update for everybody. Other than that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any questions for Mr. Riley? Seeing none, on to our business items. These are going to be pretty quick. We're going to keep in committee items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. My plan is to discuss all of these at, I've sent an email out to you at a special committee of the whole meeting. Let me just have the body, council members, jot down real quick. I'd like all of us there. If we can't, I get it. I'm off script here as we planned. But council members, if you can't make it, answer that email and let me know. I think we've got 2 answers. I'm not interested in debating everybody's schedule on the floor, but tell me if you can make it that day. I think I've got it scheduled for July, is it the 8th? I think, yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah, so I've got it scheduled for July 8th. Let me know. I'd like everybody to be there. I'm not just interested in a quorum. These are going to take 5 of 7 votes to get on. I want to give the Charter Review a quick opportunity to be present as we discuss. I'm not going to make this a long, drawn-out deal, but I do think Charter Review did a pretty good job of presenting these. So I want to give everybody an opportunity to have a little bit of discussion. I think you make progress with discussion. So that's the plan. Here's what I want you to write down, council members. If you can't make it, I've got a couple other dates. Monday, July 7th, Monday, July 14th, Thursday, July 17th. So let me know if you can make the original scheduled date. I'll try to look, or have Mrs. Mottram kind of gather that information, send it to her too, and then I just want a date that we can get together. I know there's only one meeting in July. It is a charter review year. I just wanted to give them an opportunity for us to discuss, so we're not, I know there's a lot of them, but I've got them broken down into 3, and if you could be ready for that meeting, ABC, acting mayor, public locations, and the date they get it to council. So we'll do those 3 together. This is my plan. DEF we'll do together, acting finance director, acting law director, and then consecutive terms for law and finance. And then GHI, we'll do those together, changing the number of wards, length of terms of council, and ranked choice voting. So that's the plan. I'm going to try to make that meeting not long, guys, girls, council members. So just give me a date, and I hope we can all be there and participate in that, and we'll knock that out. I know there's only one scheduled in July, but we'll make it work. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. So I guess as it stands, leaving these in committee, is it your intent to not give these legislation, or these charter amendments 3 readings?
Yeah, I think that was a good question, and I appreciate you asking it last time, and I had a couple conversations with some council members. Mr. Riley, you can chime in. I don't think we need to give 3 readings to all of them. I think we can move on some of them and know whether we suspend the rules or not, but I think that's the intent of that meeting. Maybe if there's some that are that we want to get on a council agenda to have a vote, I think maybe then we can answer your question. So I'm not diverting from you, Mr. McIntyre, I'm just trying to figure out.
I was gonna offer an alternative. Obviously, it's been, since I've lived in the city, it's been the past practice of councils to give charter amendments 3 readings. They do not have to be in committee in order for them to be discussed in committee. Some of these that we referred back to committee, as we discussed at our last meeting, they've already had their first reading. So when they ultimately come back out of committee, they'll be on for their second reading. It would be, I'm just throwing this out there, to move those that haven't had a first reading yet onto tonight's council agenda to get their first reading. Since we only have 1 meeting in July, if we move these out at the next meeting, those that already had their first reading, we would move out, and then that all would get their second reading, and then leading up to the August meeting, they would get their third and final reading. At least at that point, this body can say, you know what, we gave 3 opportunities for the public to come out and comment on it, and we'll take the final vote on August. I'm just throwing that out there for the body to consider. That way we can say that we gave all of these 3 readings. The other way opportunity is you're hopeful that you get the motion or you get the votes to suspend the rules. 3 people that say no to suspending the rules, depending on how many is here, then you don't get a suspension of the rules. So they would go on for reading. So that I'm just throwing that out there as for something for the body to consider.
And I like it because I think I messed up earlier by pushing a few out and then sending them back to me the whole. I should have done them together. I think you're saying let's get them on the right track together, right, with the first reading. I agree with that.
The ones already had their first readings, I'd have to go back and look which ones they are. But the ones,
Mr. Riley, can you excuse me?
the ones that haven't had, move out tonight for their first reading. Then our first meeting, our only meeting in July, we would move out. The ones that already had their first reading back out, they would, then all of them would get their second reading leading up to August for their third and final reading. Does that make sense?
And to answer that question, I believe it is A, B, C, and D have had first readings.
So then it would be E through I that we would move out tonight for their first reading. Again, they don't have to be in committee for us to have that discussion, to discuss charter amendments. You can put them on, you can put on a discussion item to discuss charter amendments even though they're out before. Because otherwise, if they're out before the council, you ain't gonna have a debate on them until they come up for a vote, right? So at least this way you can still have that discussion, or to continue with your plan to have some sort of robust discussion with the Charter Review Commission and council regarding these. They don't have to be in committee to talk about them.
I like it. Other council members?
Just a point of clarification or point of information. I'm double checking on the status of E because I know that was brought before F, G, H, and I were, but I don't think it got its first reading. I think it stayed in committee, but let me double check on that one just so procedurally we're making sure everything's covered. But good point.
I believe it was the first 4. Is that what we're going to say?
Yeah.
So,
checking on the 5th one because I can't remember whether or not it got its first reading and was referred back or just stayed in the committee because the Charter Review Commission referred over the first 4 and then about 2 or 3 weeks later referred number 5 and then the second chunk of the other 4 came. I just want to double check that the 5th one didn't get its first reading as well. I don't think it did, but I just want to verify that before you guys do any votes.
and how long will that take there, Mr. Riley?
A couple of minutes.
Hopefully 30 seconds.
All right, I'm with you. We'll be patient. And I appreciate that, Mr. McIntyre. I think I struggled early on doing that, moving them out and then moving them back. And
There were 5 on our last meeting that got moved back. It was 104, 105, 106, 109, 110. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Apologies too, because I missed the meeting in June. It is 110. If you guys want to vote, you can go out of order and start with 132 and circle back to E once I confirm, if you don't want to sit here and wait.
I looked at the last week's month's agenda and A through E were on there.
A through E were?
A through E, they weren't in that numeric order because there was one in between for the secret, for the amphitheater. But 104, 105, 106, 109, 110 were on last meeting's council agenda that we referred back to committee.
Okay.
But as far as going out of order, I'll leave that up to the chair.
So we're going to start with item F, is that right? We did item E or no? Did we do 110,
Yep.
Mr. McIntyre? I'm sorry.
I think 110,
Is okay?
yeah, because it was,
Yeah, it was tabled.
So 132, just, you can look just by the, if you look at E and F, one goes from 110 to 132, so that will tell you that it was A through E was the first reading only.
So we'll bring out F, G, H, and I tonight, and then that'll get everybody on the same track. Is that correct?
That'll eventually put all of them on track to get 3 readings.
Yes, right, that's what we want to do. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. McIntyre, appreciate that. I'd like to introduce item F, ordinance 2025-132, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-132, an ordinance providing for a separate amendment to the chapter of the City of Stow, Ohio to be submitted to the electorate at the general election on November 4th, 2025 to amend Article 21 of the Charter, changing the number of consecutive terms which the Law Director and Finance Director may serve and declaring an emergency.
That will move on to tonight's council agenda, correct?
You have to make a,
I'll move to move item F onto tonight's council agenda.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will be on tonight's council agenda for its first reading.
You can move them on to tonight's council agenda because they're going to get read by title at the meeting tonight, just to expedite. Just take a motion to move item G, H, I, and J, or not J, but G, H, and I onto tonight's council agenda for first reading. They're going to get read by their title out there unless, you can.
You want to make that motion?
I moved, what, do you want to do them separately, independently? Or do you
Nope,
wanna-
let's do them.
All right, I'll make a motion to move items G, H, and I onto tonight's council agenda for a first reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Those will be on tonight's council agenda. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre, for your assistance, and appreciate council's understanding is trying to keep those together. I just think it's a better process. But let me know on the date, and then we'll go from there. But thank everybody for your patience with me on that. All right, on to item J. Chief Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. If it is all right, we would like to do item K first because they are essentially out of order. We need to do our presentation in order for you to understand why we are asking you to address item J.
Everybody's good with that? We'll do item K first. Thank you, Chief Stone.
Thank you very much. We were able to meet with most of the council members here, and so this is basically a condensed version of what the presentation we gave most of you, but we felt it would be important for the public to understand why we are coming to council to ask for more staffing. And we appreciate the opportunity to do so. I will try to be brief. I know this isn't as exciting as the zoning update earlier today, but we'll try to make it a little bit interesting for you here. Back in 1990, EMS was added to our fire department, and at that time we hired the affectionately known Dirty Dozen that started the paramedic program in Stow. Just 10 years later, on November 7th of 2000, Stow citizens voted to increase the staffing and also to build 2 fire stations to answer the increased call volume. We had 2 stations. The vote was to build 2 stations, replace Station 2 with another one, and build Station 3 for a total of 3 fire stations. In 2001, we saw the 15 firefighters that were hired based on that EMS levy. They were added to the department based on a 1999 study which was designed to support up to 5,000 calls. And as you can see, our call volume has grown dramatically over the years. We've had a 44% growth in calls over the 10-year period. Our current data suggests that we will have greater than 6,000 calls for service this year. Our trends point to over 6,500 calls by the end of next year. The study, I want to reiterate, was designed to support up to 5,000 calls, not the 6,500 that we're expecting to see next year. One thing that we also want to point out, and I just remembered, I forgot to email each of you the monthly report for May with, that includes our overlapping incidents, but I'll give you a brief overview tonight. Year-to-date, as of this morning, 7 o'clock this morning, we have had 2,966 calls for service. We're not near the end of the month yet, or we're near the end of the month, but we're not at the end of the month yet. And out of those 2,966 calls for service, 2,006 were during another call for service. So essentially what overlapping incidents are is when a unit is out on a call and another call comes in, that's an overlapping incident. And it's important that we do point out that anytime a unit is out on a call, if it's an ambulance, that means that that fire protection for that district is not available, because we run what is called a combination department. Our firefighters will be on either the ambulance or the fire truck based on what type of call comes in. So each station is staffed with just enough people to cover one of those trucks, not two of those trucks. Now, year to date, we have had 68% of our calls that were overlapping. Last year, I believe it was 54% for the whole year. And prior to that, it was 50%. So the trend is growing to where we're seeing busier and busier times. The incidents are overlapping more frequently. And as you'll see on the colored graphic there at the bottom, where the 4 units on calls and 5 units on calls exist, those are calls that we simply could not answer. We relied entirely on our mutual aid partners to answer those calls, and we are coming to you tonight to address some of that area. The concern with mutual aid companies is that we might rely on them, but we can't guarantee that they're available. We cannot guarantee that they'll be able to respond in a timely fashion. And even if they do respond in a timely fashion from outside our city, it doesn't put them on scene in a time frame that we're looking for. And in the case of a medical emergency, such as we witnessed earlier tonight, which was a happy outcome, we know that time matters, and it's important that we get people on scene as soon as we can, because seconds do count in an emergency situation involving especially cardiac arrest. I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to Assistant Chief Lang.
So when we did this initial presentation for you all, we discussed the study that was done up in Hudson recently, and it was a big discussion within our own department. And Captain Acker here took our data from 2024 and plugged those numbers into the algorithm, or one of the algorithms that was used in the Hudson study, to see where we landed as far as our utilization rate and how often our units were out of service or not available for a call because they were already dispatched. And when you look at the list here, Station 1 being at 36%, as we discussed previously, that's clearly in the line in the sand portion of the, there on the right. It's not a sustainable threshold. Station 2, Station 3 are right on the cusp of that. And when you consider the new nursing home that is going in out here across from Target, consider the addition to the Vitalia up here on Allen Road, and other things that are going on within the city that we haven't, may not even know about yet, but we are going to be right there at that 30% in a very short amount of time. All indications are pointing to that. And it is clearly showing that we no longer can sustain our current model. We just simply do not have enough people to answer the calls that are coming in. Days and days and days of 20, 30 plus responses are constantly being put on the men and women of the department. We are all doing our very best to meet those needs, but the fact of the matter is there's just not enough staff on duty to handle the calls coming in. In addition, and this was my slide in the presentation too, and just to give another, just review of that, we wouldn't come to you with a problem without offering a solution, and also not without trying other methods and what did you do to try to fix this before you brought it forward. And we can say straight up, square in the eye, that the Stow Fire Department has done everything it possibly can to run as efficiently as we possibly can and put our personnel in the best positions possible to respond on all calls that are coming in. We have reduced our transport crews when it's not necessary, while still providing the full service that we've always offered with 3 personnel responding to the scene. But unfortunately, no further cuts can be made, neither safely or legally. We're required to have 2 people respond, or to transport to a hospital regardless of the condition of the patient. We're required to respond with 3 personnel, or transport with 3 personnel to the hospital if it is a life and death emergency. No more further cuts can be made, which again is why we're coming to you in this dire situation of we need more personnel.
So in 1999, we had the staffing study we've referred to a couple times already, and that was the current model that we operate under was created. In 1999, the run volume was 3,199 calls. In 2024, it was 5,524 calls. I also want to point out that in 1999, when the staffing study was done, that was only 10 years after the previous staffing study, and they had decided at that point to add a fire station and to grow the department. And it didn't take long to realize that we had a major uptick in calls. Now, the staffing has not increased in 25 years, despite we've had a 58% increase in run volume. All of our neighboring agencies, they've increased staffing because they are in the same situation as us. It's not isolated to just the city of Stow. It's everywhere in our Northeast Ohio. And our mutual aid that we used to refer to as mutual aid is no longer mutual. It's become where we have been asking more than we've been giving and been able to give because of the way that we've evolved. So in our current staffing model, we have 16 firefighters on A shift, 15 on B shift, 15 on C shift. A shift is an example of a shift that has just another person that does curtail the need for some additional staffing. In other words, A shift is able to answer more calls than B and C shift because they have that one extra person, and it's ironic. But there is also a little bit of a magic that has to occur in the shift commander's hands by moving people around when we have extra people available. So there are some stark operational differences between B and C shift and A shift just because of that extra person. But again, despite those changes that we made in 2024, we're still not able to immediately answer all these calls that we've had. There's actually hundreds of calls year to date that we've been unable to answer due to our staffing. So our solution for this year that we're going to be asking you shortly for is to immediately increase the staff by 2 firefighters. That will even out the shifts. That'll put 16 firefighters in every shift. It'll allow us to increase our daily minimum staffing to 11, and it often adds that 4th ambulance that we've always been looking forward to. It won't guarantee that 4th ambulance, but it will frequently allow us to, based on call-offs, based on sick time, based on injuries on the job, it will frequently increase our ability to have that 4th ambulance. We're not asking for a fire station. We're asking for people because we know that Station 1 is the ideal location to respond from. Most of our calls are easily accessible from Station 1. In 2026, we feel that we need to increase our staffing by 3 more firefighters. We would take that and increase our minimum staffing to 12, from 11 to 12, and then it would also allow us to always have that 4th ambulance on staff. And keeping in mind that an ambulance is just one way we're looking at it because that's the bulk of our business. However, that also allows us to have an extra fire company depending on our staffing for the day. But we do have multiple fire apparatus at Station 1, and we have 5 ambulances at Station 1. So with that extra equipment, we're able to address the needs of our community more. The nice thing about this is also we don't need additional equipment. We have the equipment there. We just need to put people on the apparatus to be able to go out and do the calls. And it's a shame to have the trucks sitting empty in the station when they're on other calls. If we could only just have a couple more people to put out there. So today's request is that we are going to be asking you to hire 2 additional firefighters to increase that staffing on B and C shift. And again, it adds that 4th ambulance company. It will also reduce the overtime. We are bleeding overtime. I think I sent an email to all of you late last night. And we are bleeding our overtime. And we feel that this will also reduce the overtime if we have increased staffing. Hopefully it'll just balance out. This will also offer us a period of evaluation to look at the impact on our resources. If we were to get those 2 people tonight, I know there's budget concerns, and anything to do with the budget, I'll refer to the finance department. I believe we have budgeted for one firefighter this year, additional firefighter. We would not be able to hire anybody until August, thereabouts, and that would have about an 8-month impact on a 12-month budgeted item. So really, I don't think we would be hurting at all to address that tonight. And finally, tonight, I do see that we have 2 members of our local 1662 that have attended tonight, and they have asked, with your permission, if they could, at the end of my presentation, read a letter that they have. And I believe it may have been dispersed to council already, but with your permission, Mr. President, could they go ahead and finish up by reading their letter?
Yeah, in 1 second. I want to open your presentation up to the floor,
Yes.
council, so you can answer some questions, and I'll follow up with their letter if you're good with that. I think just
Absolutely.
trying to keep things orderly here. So questions for Chief Stone. I'll start on the right. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman, Chief Stone, Assistant Chief Lang. Thanks for your presentation. Can you go back a few slides? It was more to the study percentages that you guys were, yeah, right here. So looking at these impacts on the resources, these are the current impacts right now, correct?
Correct.
So my question is, with these 2 firefighters, where is it going to bring these numbers? Into what range or what indicator range are we going to be looking at with these 2 firefighters?
So this is a start. We know for sure that we currently are unable to meet the need. We know by putting that 4th ambulance in service will dramatically reduce this range. What we don't know for sure, because it's nearly impossible to predict 100%, is exactly how much that will go by adding. What we do know is on A shift right now, we're able to put that 4th ambulance in service much, much more often than we are on B and C shift. This is essentially, we're trying to help close the gap while we take the time to truly analyze like the big picture. We know that we can't ask for a new station right now and the equipment to staff it and another 15 people like they hired in 2001. But we're asking right now for 2 individuals so that we can at least try to stop the bleed and pull this down a little bit by putting that 4th company in service when possible. When we adjusted our staffing with the response on EMS calls, instead of putting all 3 individuals in the ambulance, we're now sending 2 in the ambulance and sending the 3rd behind in the chase vehicle. And then if they're not needed to go to the hospital because it's a code 3 or life and death emergency, they're going back to the station, staying within the city borders. What this additional person will help do is, depending on how many calls we have going on at the same time, we could have anywhere from 0 people left in the city to 3, or it could be 1. This 1 extra person here would now at least assemble a crew of 2 most of the time to get another ambulance out the door to at least start CPR, administer immediate care if we're even still waiting for a mutual aid department to get there. It helps buy time. So to clearly say, if we bring 1 person in, I'm looking to drop this from 30% line in the stand level down to system stress, I don't think that I could accurately give you that information tonight.
Okay.
But what I can do, though, is tell you for sure that a person on A shift that B and C don't have enables us to put that 4th ambulance on the road much more often.
Okay, and then obviously when the old Stow Glen went out of business, obviously I'm assuming there was a high volume of calls, but what's being built there now is just going to increase calls again back to that same area. What station is that going to put a strain on?
So that's Station 3's district, but I can tell you that Station 1 will probably spend a lot of time over there. The way our districts are set up, Station 1 covers Station 3's district when 3 is out. Station 1 covers Station 2's district when 2's is out. And then 2 and 3 cover 1's district up to 91 on either side. So that the overlap most likely would be Station 1 over there.
Okay, and what you're proposing here, this is going to address those types of calls that's ultimately going to be coming from that type of facility, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then the other one that was mentioned earlier, the Vitalia property over there, are you going to see similar, I don't know what the call volume is for that type of property. I know there's kind of mixed, there's assisted living in there, then there's some independent living, so I don't know what the call volume is there, but what they're proposing over there, is that what you're proposing here going to address those potential increase in calls when that new facility opens?
Yes, we can say that address on Allen Road is currently our highest user of our system. And we would anticipate if they are going to add on and make it even bigger, then we would anticipate them, putting even a larger demand on our service.
Okay. And then do you anticipate beyond these two that you're requesting this evening, not necessarily this year, but what are future predictions in terms of requests for firefighters in 2026?
What we're hoping to do is prove to you what we can accomplish by making these adjustments. We know that in the next between 1 to 3 years, there's going to be a significant retirement rate out of the fire department due to pension limitations. And we were given approval by finance to hire people a little bit ahead of when others leave so that we can onboard them correctly, get them trained and spooled up. And we're hoping to be able to show with some of that overlap what the call volume is that we can handle, essentially performing our own internal study while we're onboarding people, and then work off of that to have a very productive, realistic model that doesn't break the bank, but also provides what the public is expecting from us.
Okay, and my last question, with the two tonight, given, I'm assuming you guys are working from a current list?
Correct.
If these two were authorized by council tonight, when would we see these two newest firefighters start the process with the city of Stow? Do you have somebody from the list in mind if they are selected or approved tonight?
We think that we could get somebody onboarded, excuse me, no later than the beginning of August, maybe even July 28th, I think is the date. Would it be a possibility?
And how many, I guess the current list you're working from, how many people are on that list?
So the current list that we're working off of is nearly exhausted. We do have 2 individuals that have gone through the interview process, have gone through the polygraph, the psychological exam. They are cleared for hire. What we would need to do next, pending your approval, would be give them a conditional job offer, which would then send them for a medical exam to ensure that they're medically fit to be a firefighter. And then once we have that, then they would be cleared to go ahead and onboard with a swearing-in ceremony. So we could move very quickly moving forward from tonight.
And when's the next examination that would create a new list to work from?
We spoke today with Civil Service, and we believe that we'll be administering that test sometime in September.
And how big is, final question, I promise, how big is that list of applicants, or how big is that pool that are usually on that list to work from?
It's getting smaller and smaller as the years go by. In 2000, when I took the test to work for the city, there was over 300 applicants. Over the last few years, we've had about 70 to 80. And we are one of the higher, our department has one of the higher levels of interest. Some departments don't get enough applicants that there are compared to openings anymore. So I feel we're in a good position as compared to other cities. We have a lot of positive feedback from paramedic riders and firefighters who are coming out of school and looking for full-time jobs. This is a place where a lot of people are looking to work, so I would feel confident that we would have about that number again, or maybe more. Good.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Fulton.
No problem. Other questions or comments from council members? Ms. Councilwoman Coffey.
Thank you. I have several questions for Chief Stone and Chief Lang, and then some finance questions for Mr. Toppin, but thank you for the presentation. So you mentioned the variance in overtime shifts, in overtime pay between shifts A, B, and C, with shift A having less overtime because there's an additional firefighter. So do you know numerically the variance?
We do not. We actually contacted finance today to see if we could separate it out, and we just have a bulk number, which is all 3 shifts. So we don't have a way to, at this time, separate it out without an exhaustive search. But
in addition to that too, it's not just bulk numbers per person. it can be shift fill overtime, training overtime. So it's very hard to figure out what overtime was just for shift fill for emergency response.
Sure. Could you get that for us for the next meeting?
We're trying to. We don't know how, we're working with finance to get that. We don't have the capability. I would assume that we can work with them to do that.
That would be helpful information. Thank you. So some finance questions, just, I mean, for me, safety and police and fire is a huge priority. I just want to know your finance's confidence that the additional revenue from the changes that they've made, that will cover it. And I'm not super worried about 2024 because there was one in the budget and it wouldn't be until August adding two, so that's essentially the same thing. But I'm more concerned about sustainability, and if you feel like that's there, and then if this would be prioritized then over other positions that would be, extra positions going forward.
As far as prioritization, that's not finance's decision. That would be the service director's decision. What I can tell you is just by adding these two, because they were budgeted for one for this year, by adding two this late in the year, it would not have a negative effect on the budget that was approved. Now, I will pose it with the proposal for 3 new firefighters in 2026. Again, that's going to be with the directors, because you fill those 3 positions, that's probably going to knock out any other, personnel within the city for the 2026 budget. That's just a, estimation right now. I don't have, without exact numbers, we won't. But that is something we have to keep in mind as well as a whole city, that if we're looking to add other personnel full-time through the city and other departments, that, those additional staff will count.
Sure. Thank you. I think it's wise we started with 2, and I mean, even then you could see how that goes and then reassess numbers and budget and everything next year to see if that's even a possibility. But so with the 2 being added, you feel confident not only for this year, but moving forward for sustainability that those would be in the budget?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, my only other request is, if we could see those overtime variances between the 3 shifts, that would be super helpful.
Thank you, Mrs. Coffey. Other questions, comments? Mr. Baranek.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. I'm just going to throw the elephant out there right in the middle of the room, in that, that I think the safety forces is definitely high on my list to make sure that we can sustain what we're doing. But there are a couple issues that are out there that will be, I don't know if they'll get on the November ballot. I don't know if they'll get on next year's ballot. But you have those issues of the termination of property taxes, which some of our and eliminate inside millage, which is sitting out there at a committee of the state legislature with their wonderful minds thinking of inside millage. And a lot of our inside millage goes towards safety forces currently. For police and fire pension, actually for the fire levy, all that's inside millage. And there's a possibility that, we move forward with this, that down the road, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions if something gets passed that we don't like to see get passed. But I think with the way it's presented this year, with adding the 2 firefighters this year, I think that I think that's a good opportunity for us to at least answer some of these questions, or actually have our service, for stay where it's at or get better. So I just want to make sure that we're aware of things that are out there on the horizon that are not very plausible for us to hopefully get passed.
Thank you, Mr. Burnack. Other questions? Mr. Reel.
Yeah, could you just touch again on the why about all of this? I would guess say more specifically about private entities, including hospitals, no longer using private ambulances and instead focusing on taxpayer subsidized services.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Reel. You all may have heard a couple years ago when AMR, the private ambulance, that had left the area and put Akron Fire in a position where they had to hire additional personnel, had to add extra ambulances, physical ambulances as well to meet the needs. Along with that, private ambulances that used to respond to the nursing facilities that we have in Stow no longer desire to do that. They base their business entirely on predictability. So they will schedule trips, they will schedule their staffing based on how many calls they have planned. They do not like to respond to the unknown, so they just won't do it. In 2015, 2016, I was doing a research paper for my Ohio Fire Executive class, and it was based on the need for transport out of nursing facilities, ironically. At that time, we still had private ambulances available, and I spoke to some of the agencies, and they said, we simply just don't want to do it because we want that predictability. We have no interest in doing unplanned trips, as they would call them. So with that, the nursing homes now, they have to turn to the next best thing, which happens to be the fire service. So they call us for those transports. We actually never intended on, when we had this initial EMS levy in 2000, it was the intent that we would not transport out of those facilities, but here we are.
Thank you, Mr. Reel. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Regarding staffing for next year, I guess it's more of a question for Mayor Probonik. Mayor Probonik, at obviously July, we have one meeting, and that's one of the meetings where the introduction of the budget process has started, and pursuant to the codified ordinances honor that when the introduction of the annual budget, is the HR director prepared to give her annual report on staffing for what is being proposed under Section 132.02A through F for that meeting when the introduction of the budget, so we understand the staffing needs for the upcoming year?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. McIntyre, anybody else? Yes, Mrs. Coffey.
Just to go back to what I said about the question regarding overtime, this is a motion, so can we get that information prior?
Well, we're going to make a motion, somebody will on the floor, and we're going to vote on the motion, as the agenda says.
With that being said, I'll make a motion to authorize the hiring. Well, first,
Yes.
as Chief Stone indicated, they had two guests here that wanted to read something before we even make a motion.
We'll get to it. Any other comments from the floor of council? Seeing none. Sir, somebody's got a letter to read?
Yeah.
You have to stand up, come to the mic, hit the green button. For the record, just state your name and address.
My name is Nick Mickelson. I'm Vice President of the Firefighters Union Local 1662 for the Stow firefighters. Here just to put a letter from our union supporting the chief's request for additional staffing. So I'll read that aloud. To the Stow City Council and Stow City Administration, this letter serves to express complete support for the Fire Department Administration's request to increase firefighter staffing. The local 1662 chapter of the International Association of Firefighters has proudly served this community since it was first organized in 1966. It is a privilege to continue the services started by the original volunteers. For over 5 decades, our members have answered the call, no matter the circumstances, no matter the event. The community has changed during our time of service. Our current staffing model is based off a study conducted in 1999. Stow looks much different today than it did when that study was conducted. As our community has changed, the requests for emergency services from the fire department have increased dramatically. The types of services provided have shifted over time from the traditional concept of firefighting to our current all hazards response. Both the volume and complexity of our services have compounded since the last staffing study. In order to effectively meet the needs of our community, the Stow Fire Department must increase the number of full-time firefighters, paramedics. Our members have worked with the fire administration to stretch our resources as far as we can based on the 1999 staffing model. We can no longer safely manage the continued growth of our call volume in our current state. The amount of firefighter staffing ambulances or fire apparatus cannot further be reduced safely or legally. We also wish to acknowledge the strain we have placed on other fire departments in this region by over-reliance on mutual aid response. Stow firefighters want to meet the needs of our community. We support the fire administration's request to increase staffing. The local union wishes to continue providing exceptional emergency services to our community. In order to do so, the answer is clear: more full-time firefighters. We're concerned that without staffing increases, we will not be able to continue to answer the increased call volume. Subsequently, the safety of the community and our members could become jeopardized. Our mission is to save lives and protect property. In order to fulfill that, we need adequate local resources. We appreciate your careful consideration in this urgent need.
Thank you, Nick. Anything else? You guys good? Appreciate you being here tonight and appreciate your patience. Any other questions from council? I just have one. I appreciate, Chief Stone, that you look for solutions before you go to staff, right? I think that's important. Something came up this past week and I got to watch a call and your guy, I'm just, what does a chase vehicle do? Because I looked at everybody that got called, big truck, ambulance, another truck, and then a chase vehicle. And I was like, okay. I just didn't quite, if you can educate me a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So each of our fire stations is staffed with 3 firefighters, and they're dual role firefighter paramedics. Station 1 has the shift captain that rolls out of that station but operates independently on their own. So each time a fire call is dispatched, whichever district it's in, all 3 firefighters get on the fire engine and leave the station empty of any additional resources. For EMS calls, we acknowledge that a significant portion of those calls don't require 3 people to transport to the hospital. The staffing model was originally set up that way when our run volume was much less. It was before Chief Stone and I were in administrative roles, and that was the way that was kind of the industry norm in our area. But after analyzing what we were doing and the severity of most of our transports, we determined that, especially through the COVID era, we were sending 3 firefighters to the hospital where oftentimes we would wait a half hour, 2 hours for a hospital bed and have 3 of our paramedics tied up waiting to transfer a patient. So what we did to meet the legal obligations of having the proper number of personnel go to the hospital while also maintaining the level of service that the citizens and the community has come to expect from us, we send 2 firefighters out in the ambulance, and the chase vehicle generally has the lieutenant, who is the commander of that crew of 3, will come in the chase vehicle. They will help assess the patient, do the heavy lifting on the scene, get them in the ambulance, initiate that emergency care, work together as a team to determine, A, is this a life or death emergency to go to the hospital, and if it's not, then that person in the chase vehicle gets in their chase vehicle and goes back to the fire station while the ambulance makes the transport. And what we've discovered is, by doing that, many times, those individuals that remain in the city can then regroup to then put another vehicle in service, if need be. We want to be aware that, as I brought up, each time either the ambulance or the fire truck leaves any of our stations, there's no personnel left there to run the other unit, which I think that a lot of people in the community don't understand the dual role that we play there, and that there's only 3 firefighters coming out of that house. And so by maintaining those people within the city limits to rally for another additional crew, we're doing the best we can to meet the call demand that keeps coming at us.
Thanks. Yeah, your presentation, Chief, when we sat down, I don't like having empty, nobody ready, right? Because you never know when a public safety issue or a dispatch is along, so, it's the backup, right? You got to have somebody ready regardless of what we're doing. So that was the convincing factor for me on each shift, right? I'm good, I'm covered, I don't want any blank spaces, right? Public safety, that's important. So, other comments, any questions before we wrap this up and ask for a motion? Seeing none, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate all your work. Great timing today, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate your timing on the presentation, but that was truly heartfelt and in action. And Mr. Baranek, we appreciate your comments too. So, all right, let's move along. Item K was first, now we're on item J. Do we have a motion to hire 2 firefighters?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will have the clerk call the roll.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel?
Yes.
Bioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee? Yes. Baranek?
Yes.
That motion passes. Appreciate your time, Chief Stone, Chief Lang, and let's get that person, let's get them on board and rolling, right? Public safety.
Appreciate it.
You got it. Moving along, no executive session tonight. The next item is on the committee of the whole agenda is public comment. Now the time comes to me when we ask for your comments from the audience. Do we have any? I will recognize you. You can come forward, state your name and address, and become part of the permanent record. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for inviting us up to say what we need to talk about. My name is Donna Novak.
And my name is Ron Novak.
We're residents since 1976 in our development, and we have new critters coming in. And there are a lot of critters because they're building Vitalia near us. They're opening up some property across on Hudson Drive where they're building more industry and warehouses. And we are having a lot of unwelcome wildlife. We got ourselves 2 baby skunks. I didn't even know we had skunks, but we got 2, and it cost us almost $700 to have them removed. And we didn't want to be in violation of any animal cruelty, so when they are trapped, they have to leave within 24 hours. And there have been an overabundance of skunk this year, so almost every city couldn't provide us help, but we finally got someone, and we were relieved. And they're gone, and our house and our yard smells great now. But we also have other rodents that are coming in, groundhogs. Between the 4 houses where I reside, we have 8 groundhogs. They have all given their little pups, I guess that's what you call them. They're really cute, but they dig tunnels. They're ruining people's property. And there's no help here. We don't have an abatement program to help us recover some of our funds. We're on fixed income now, we're retired. And we love to have wildlife in our yard at times, like the birds and that, and some squirrels. But some people are feeding these critters, thinking they're doing favors. They're taking care of feral cats, which is attracting the wildlife too. So on our trash bills or on our water bills, the city possibly can put a little blip. Beware of what you're doing in your community. Don't feed the wild critters. Make sure your yards are clean. Don't leave out your garbage and trash. Just little blips. It's not going to cost too much, I don't believe. We used to do it at work where I worked, and I worked for a company that was worldwide, and we'd put it on our invoices, and it works. people that are paying bills will look at that. So it's just a solution to make people aware that their generosity is working against some of their neighbors. That's one solution, but I also understand in talking with our representative, Mr. Focaccia, that there is a deer ordinance, but it doesn't help with the little critters. We have coyotes too, skunks, rabbits, groundhogs. You want to call them woodchucks, you can. But they love to tunnel. And we're fixing our yard back again. But we need some help. Somehow, something has to be done with the wildlife critters. They bring disease. You can't walk your pets. You have a coyote that comes to visit too now. And it's because of the construction. We're growing and we're talking about the need of people with the fire department. God help the fire department, the police department that service us. But we need someone that's gonna be the critter guy or girl and take care of these rodents in a nice, positive way. And you don't want to have baby skunks because they are powerful. Right, Ron?
Oh, it's my turn.
Thank you, Mrs. Novak. You've got a few more minutes.
It's long-winded.
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
love her.
Go ahead, Mr. Novak. We're going to wrap it
Part of
up.
the problem is, though, these animals are all over. But what's causing it is people are feeding them. We have a neighbor that's, and I don't want, we're not
We love her.
finger pointers and
But
hate our neighbors. I showed pictures to Mr. Feldman and Mr. Fielka. If you have an opportunity, look up 4975 Comanche Trail, Stow, Ohio. It's the street view that the city takes of the house. And ask yourself, do I want that as my neighbor? That's all I have to say. The rest is going to be in your hands because we have faith that you gentlemen will take care of this. That's all we got to say, I think.
Thank you. We appreciate you hanging around. I know that was a long wait.
it's okay. It's interesting to hear this stuff. And it's interesting to try and get people aware of it. Not too many people are here,
Yep.
right?
We will follow up.
Another little blip, another little blip. Come hear us talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you,
Appreciate it.
folks.
Thank you.
Have a good 4th. Be safe. Have a safe and slow flight. Okay? We're gonna win. We have a critter at home. Bye-bye. God bless.
Mr. Mayor, we can look at maybe the water bill. I'm just thinking, not a bad solution, right?
Yeah, I've already made that note.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. Any other public comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? We are adjourned. Now, I'm just going to add those. I'm going to add those in.
You just do what you want.
No, I'm always making sure I'm doing it right. We good? I would like to call to order the regular city council meeting of June 26, 2025, and let me apologize for 8:38 PM. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Feldman?
Here.
Reel?
Present.
Baranek?
Here.
Coffee? Pioka?
Here.
McIntyre?
Here.
Herman?
Here.
Next item on the agenda, I'd like to recognize Councilman at Large Kyle Herman for the prayer and pledge of allegiance.
Please feel free to join this prayer if you feel the Spirit. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. I did not join in because I cannot sing. But you were very good at keeping the melody in the tone. So, next item, we have before us the regular city council minutes from the June 12th, 2025 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Public comment period. Anybody in the audience? No public comment. We'll move along. Mayor's report. Mayor Probonic.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. A couple things. First of all, Celebrate Stow Week is coming up. Hard to believe that we're right around the corner from our 4th of July parade. But also, too, on July 2nd, we're adding a story walk over here at the Sanctorium. So that will be the ribbon cutting before the concert on the green on July 2nd. So again, I invite you to attend that. Also, too, this past week, you should have received a postcard either Friday, Saturday, or Monday. It was from our new Stow Helping Hands group. We're collecting hygiene products, underwear, toothpaste, and all so forth like that for our schools and also for Bulldog bags. So anybody who's interested, there's several places that you can go ahead and drop these donations off, and one of them here is at City Hall. Last but not least, very important, you'll see coming your way a piece of legislation with Megan's Way Out from the Kellerman family. It was very informative, and I'd like to go ahead and, as has been talked, we're going to probably add another fast food chain, and they're already on board to where we could go ahead and make something like this work. So again, it's recognizing Megan in a way to make this better, this world a better place. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Probonic. That was a very impressive proclamation. I know we were a little over and we did it in Finance Committee meeting, but Marissa and Lisa saving Bob and our safety forces, and the timing was outstanding, but very well done, and we appreciate your leadership on that. Questions for the mayor? Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Mayor Probonic, I just have a quick question and I guess more of a request. I just wanted to bring, so back on June 6th, the Civil Service Commission met to discuss the opening of examination and the process of selecting a new police chief. And at that meeting, it looks like, not at that meeting, but there was a committee that's going to be involved in the selection process of that. And I am requesting if, this would be at the selection of the council president, but that a member of council be a part of that committee as a non-voting member, obviously, as more as a liaison to the selection process to keep council informed of that process and, who's being considered and everything else as we get through that process. Is that something you're willing to consider?
That's fine.
Okay. Council President, I would like to, if, it's at your pleasure, but I say, for me, there's no better person to serve than the Assistant Chair of the Roads and Safety Committee, Kelly Coffey. I know her passion for law enforcement and safety in our schools. So I just wanted to throw that out there as you consider making a selection to put somebody in that committee to keep us apprised of the process.
Any other comments, questions? I agree. I don't think we need a motion or anything, correct? We can appreciate your willingness, Mr. Mayor, to allow that. I think that's a pretty good communication piece for council, keeping them informed as we move along. Mrs. Coffey, Councilwoman Coffey, you're good?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. We'll be waiting for your communication to us, but thank you. Thank you for willingness to do that. I want to thank Mrs. Coontz. She is here tonight in a substitute role who was with us not long ago, so thank you for being here. She is doing well in her new position, and we just want to thank you. So taking the time out, and it was a long meeting too, so. All right, any old business to come before council? Yes, Mr. Herman.
I move to reconsider Resolution 2025-116, resolution granting lot split approval to Brad Ruth on behalf of EFI Companies for the property located on Fish Creek Road. I would like to change my vote and would request that we reconsider the resolution in accordance with Council Rule 5.8.
So we need a second, correct? Mr. Beranek, second. Any more discussion? Yes, Mr. Herman.
Yes, just by way of explanation of why I'm asking for the reconsideration is we had discussed it at this lot split at various meetings, and I felt that it was becoming confused with intent in regard to potential rezoning that may or may not happen regarding it, but upon reflection after the vote, this resolution itself is only really dealing with the lot split, and so I felt that it should, I now feel that it should be taken on the merits of that split itself, and I don't see any reason to object to allowing this to be separated as a different parcel if Mr. Ruth or anyone else wanted to, sell the property or have other plans with it at some point in the future. I just wanted to make the distinction between the lot split itself and any potential hypotheticals for which that land could be used.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Other comments? Is that your hand? Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Mrs. Coffey. All right. Let me check with my Robert's rules. We just need a simple majority on this, correct? Mr. Rowley, I believe when you reconsider, I got my little cheat sheet, but I think
I believe so. I can confirm for you if you want, though.
Reconsider.
Now, the big hurdle is the person, someone who voted it against it has to be the one that actually makes the motion.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, are we good then, Mr. Riley? I can have the clerk call the roll. Will the clerk please call the roll? Wait, sorry. Yes. Yes, would you, Mr. Herman, this was you, the clerk doesn't have the number or the language in front of you. Can you get it, or should I have you? She doesn't have it. Can you give her the number so for the record?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, we don't. Are you okay? I wasn't either, but go ahead, go ahead. Will the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution 2025-116, a resolution granting lot split approval to Brad Ruth, applicant on behalf of EFI Companies, owner to permit a lot split of the property located on Fish Creek Road in the city of Stow, Ohio, into two separate parcels and granting certain variances.
Thank you, Mrs. Kuntz. I think we already had a motion. We just read it, and we had a second, and we've already had discussion. So will the clerk please call the roll?
McIntyre?
No.
Reel?
No.
Yoka?
No.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffey? Yes. Beranek?
Yes.
Simple majority, that resolution passes. On to old business. Any other new business to, no, I'm still on old business. I have one more item. We good? Any other old business? Thank you, Mr. Herman. Come before council. I'd like to make a motion to add items H, I, J, and K to the section of this agenda, disposition of ordinances and resolutions.
Those are the ones that came out of, I was just going to bring them up on a new business, but I'll second your motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yeah, what I did there, Mr. McIntyre, was I went through, got them on committee of the whole, and then we want to read them to make sure they get their first
Do you
reading.
have all the titles?
I'll give you the number when we get to it. Yeah, so that would be
132,
32, 33, 34, and 35. Yeah. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? That will be added to the end of the agenda. Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. McIntyre.
And I'll just do a point of order.
Okay.
All we did was we just voted to reconsider. We didn't actually take the item up again. So it allows us to
reconsider
we're talking about
motion
the
to adopt.
lot split?
Yeah. So now
We need to get it on an agenda.
no, now it's, we've agreed to reconsider it, but now you need to actually have a vote.
Oh.
on the
Motion
merits
to
of the
adopt it,
legislation.
right?
Correct. You're exactly right. All right, so let me finish H, I, J, and K. I'm good, right, Mr. Riley? I got
Yeah,
those?
I apologize. I didn't catch that because I was reading
that's
the
okay.
Roberts rule.
Well,
So good
Mr. Real keeps me squared away up
Vice
here,
President Real.
believe me. All right, so now we need a motion to reconsider, to adopt that resolution, correct?
Move to adopt Resolution 2025-116.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have something.
Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Well, I can agree with what you said, Mr. Herman, in terms of that. You can't discount that the property owner came in and says it's his intent to come back here and rezone it to industrial for the sole purpose of putting up self-storage. It was also indicated in the questions I asked, of the planning and zoning director, is this the definition of spot zoning? Yes, and ultimately it also goes against our comprehensive plan. So again, I understand what you're saying, looking at the merits of splitting the lot, but we can't discount the fact that the applicant himself says he fully intends on coming back and asking this to be changed to industrial so he can accommodate himself for self-storage. So, thank you.
Any other discussion, comments? Mrs. Coffey.
Just a question for Mr. Cowan, because we had spoken about the possibility with the new zoning code rewrite of a planned development overlay, and that allowing this to be in that area without a problem. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, that would be a possible option through the new plan development overlay. And, technically he could do that by, if he splits a lot or if he keeps it as is. So he will have options in the future.
Any other questions, comments?
I have just one.
Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Is that, can you define what that is? Because I have my reservations about changing the law to accommodate one property owner. But is it still going to be the definition of spot zoning? We're appeasing one property to accommodate a certain type of thing.
No, not the base zoning. So under a PDO, plan development overlay, it would still be an overlay district. So you still have the base zoning district regulations existing on that property. But under the overlay, they could apply for site modifications, including exceptions from the use, but they have to meet a certain criteria under that overlay.
But that doesn't change the fact that that use would still go against our comprehensive plan. That wouldn't change, correct?
The zoning, if they change the zoning, would certainly go against the comprehensive plan. But we'll also have another option for a use variance, where they could apply for a variance to have a use that's not permitted in the zoning code. So there'll be a couple different options for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Sure. Other comments, questions? All right, I think we have a motion, we have a second, and we've had discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
McIntyre?
No.
Reel?
No.
Bioka?
No.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Baranek?
Yes.
That resolution passes. Thank you, Mr. Real, for keeping me squared away up here. Reconsider, and then I learned something. All right, let's move on to new business. One item for new business, and I will send all council members a link. Chief Film asked me to bring this up. I didn't get a chance to send it to all council members. It's about e-bikes. He brought it up to me on Wednesday, and I don't want to take too much time. We're already over our time, Chief, but I certainly think it's important enough, seeing what Avon Lake just recently did with their e-bike ordinance. So go ahead.
Yes, we received a couple of complaints about the e-bikes on the trails and where people are walking. They do go very fast. I did reach out to our law department. We are researching that, and I also reached out to the Summit Metro Parks, because most of our trails, almost all our trails, belong to them. They do have a restriction on the Class 3 bikes, which go 28 miles an hour, but the Class 1 and 2 bikes that go 20 mile an hour are permitted, just like any other bicycle. Any trails where the bikes are prohibited, obviously the e-bikes are also prohibited. I did ask him to research whether or not they actually have a ordinance that they can cite, that's a big moth, where they can actually issue a citation, and he's looking into that for me.
Thank you, Chief. I'll send this, you guys can probably look it up. I think it's on YouTube. It's Avon Lake. They just recently passed an emergency ordinance where they had a police officer explaining it, and it was pretty informative. I know it wasn't very long, but I'll get it out to you. I think it's something we can look at. Go ahead, Mr. McIntyre.
I guess, Chief Phil, you're saying the bulk of our trails, because I want to be clear, they are bike and hike trails, they're not just hiking trails, right?
Correct.
And I guess most of them are under the jurisdiction of Summit County Metro Parks?
That's correct.
So wouldn't it be their responsibility to have somebody out there to run radar and issue citations, and not Stow Police Department?
We would assist if we got a complaint. Still City of Stow. However, I just didn't know we didn't know if they had any type of county ordinance, and that's what they were checking for us for. Obviously, we don't want people, these bikes and these scooters are getting faster and faster, and there was an accident on one of them where one of the electric bikes, somebody was hurt. They hurt themselves on a bridge, but so we just wanted to open up for discussion to see what this looked like.
Okay, well, I would just request if there is legislation that comes forward to bring it through the Roads and Safety Committee.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. So let's just prep, and then we'll get something on your committee, and we'll go from there. Sound good? All right, on to disposition of ordinances and resolutions. Item A, 2025-107 will remain on the table. Item B, C, and D will remain in committee. I'd like to introduce ordinance 2025-139 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-139, an ordinance declaring the improvement to certain parcels in the city to be a public purpose and exempt from taxation pursuant to ORC 5709.40B, providing for the collection and deposit of service payments and specifying the purposes for which those service payments may be expended, authorizing school and library compensation payments, and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel?
Yes.
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Baranek?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce item F, ordinance 2025-144, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-144, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Henderson Products, Inc. for plow and truck parts without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel?
Yes.
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Baranek?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce Item G, ordinance 2025-145, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-145, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Akron Freightliner, Inc. for parts and labor for street department trucks without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel?
Yes.
Fielka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee? Yes. Baranek?
That ordinance passes, will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce item H. Ordinance 2025-132, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-132, an ordinance providing for a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow, Ohio, to be submitted to the electorate at the general election on November 4th, 2025, to amend Article 21 of the charter, changing the number of consecutive terms which the law director and finance director may serve and declaring an emergency.
That will constitute its first reading. I'd like to introduce item I, ordinance 2025-133, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-133, an ordinance providing for a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow, Ohio, to be submitted to the electorate at the general election on November 4th, 2025, to amend section 4.02 and section 5.01 of the charter, changing the number of wards for the city of Stow City Council and declaring an emergency.
That will constitute its first reading. I'd like to introduce item J, ordinance 2025-134, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-134, an ordinance providing for a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow, Ohio, to be submitted to the electorate at the general election on November 4th, 2025, to amend section 4.02 and section 21.08 of the charter, changing the length of terms for city council members and declaring an emergency.
That will constitute its first reading. I'd like to introduce letter K, ordinance 2025-135, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
Ordinance 2025-135, an ordinance providing for a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow, Ohio, to be submitted to the electorate at the general election on November 4th, 2025, to amend Article 16 of the charter, establishing section 16.07 entitled Ranked Choice Voting for Municipal Elections and declaring an emergency.
That will constitute its first reading. Let me say thank you to the council for being understanding on keeping all those in order and on track. I'm going to call Mr. McIntyre's suggestion, which was very good, on track, so we're all squared away. So thank you all for that. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The bills are paid. We just have that one request on roads and safety. If we get the e-bikes, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed?